Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto Wind and Lightning Kekkei Genkai. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Shodaime and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Blonde hair flew over rooftops, blurring in and out of the way of poles and other obstructions to the final destination. Blue eyes and an orange jumpsuit managed to avoid detection, dodging and sidestepping any who came its way. A large fox-like grin appeared on the lips of the blur as it passed into the confines of the forest, deep into the shrubbery and darkness provided by the trees. Konoha was asleep and none would probably know of the blonde's little adventure tonight save for those who would pass him into the next level of the Ninja Academy, the Forbidden Scroll. An archive of mystery, intelligence, ancient and forbidden jutsu, a keepsake of previous Hokages, and the jutsus that they not only invented but took from various other ninjas they had met in battle and had taken the time to learn their techniques. Although the scroll was old and powerful, it was very, very, very poorly kept. That view was enforced even more by the evidence that a 12-year-old boy, who couldn't even pass the academy graduation exam, equipped with one perverted jutsu of his own design, a set of rusty kunai and the largest amount of trust in the world, could steal said scroll and claim it for himself. The third Hokage might have to reconsider his current security system, or, as it was more likely, get an actual security system other than relying on chunin and jounin susceptible to their libidos and sexual urges and would faint at the sight of a naked young woman. Uzumaki Naruto, the village pariah and its wall against the rage of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, scanned his eyes over the scroll, or scrolls if I might use the correct form, as there were not one sole scroll, but one scroll that released automatic seals, revealing scrolls written by the 4 different Hokage. Shodaime, Nidaime, Sandaime and Yandaime. Each with a different scroll on a different subject. Suga 1, Naruto said as he was overcome by excitement. The brilliant blonde hair illuminated in the moonlight as the clouds above moved past the clearing in the forest. Shodaime's Guide to Elemental Jutsu and all that jazz. Naruto read aloud. Sounds like my kind of guy. That scroll was the first to be opened. Within his office the Sandaime's eyes grew wide as he saw Naruto opening the scroll on elemental jutsu. The basics of the elements, the fusions of the elements, and the sub-elements they created. The Sandaime grew worried that there were jutsus and instructions in that scroll. His worry was short-lived however as he recalled that Naruto could not in his whole life do a single one of those jutsu. The reason was that those jutsu were only sub-elemental, completely useless to someone who had no ability or Kekkei Genkai involving the fusions of the 5 prime elements, and no jutsus on those in the least. The Sandaime would later regret not taking more notice after that, as if he would have remembered that Naruto was one for achieving the impossible. Mizuki sneered and grinned as Iruka followed his instincts in an attempt to find Naruto and the Forbidden Scroll. It had been easy to get to the boy and convince him that all he needed to do was steal the village's precious Forbidden Scroll. After that, Mizuki would kill him and take the scroll. Even if Naruto survived that, he would be in a large amount of trouble with the rest of the villagers and the village council. Not even the Sandaime could protect him from the punishment that would befall the unsuspecting academy student when he was found. The chunin followed his fellow and felt disgust rise up in the pit of his stomach. How could someone like Iruka, who had lost everything that was ever important to him in his entire life to the Kyuubi, be so willing to accept the boy? To like the boy? To take the time out to get to know him and treat him to ramen? To love him like a younger brother? Like a surrogate son? Iruka of all people had a right to hate the Kyuubi, and he had just discarded it in order to connect and bond with that monstrosity. It was Iruka's kindness that had compelled Mizuki towards him, as it had been his kindness to give Naruto a chance. And it was his kindness that would get him killed this night. The crystal release, Shoton, are techniques that manipulate crystal. Using crystal release, the user can crystallize anything around them, turning everything into a weapon. Its power to solidify targets can go down to a cellular level. This element appears to regularly use a ram hand seal. Crystals for the crystal release are summoned through any surrounding, making everything a weapon for the user. The only apparent weakness of the crystal release is that it cannot crystallize raw chakra, allowing a person with enough chakra control to resist being inwardly crystallized. Lightning techniques also appear to rather effective against the crystal release. Shoton? Naruto asked aloud. Why would anyone use crystals to fight? Cellular level? I may sound more impressive if I actually knew what that meant. Naruto skimmed through the scroll with scrutiny. The list of Shoton techniques sounded cool, but they seemed to be way out of Naruto's league. Even he had an inkling that something like this wouldn't work. Nevertheless, the blonde Uzumaki made a mental note about this and scanned the list of jutsu again, before moving on to the other elements the Shodaime had written about, having completely skipped the part about how to work the elements, and what they were exactly about. Ice release. Hayaton allows users to combine wind and water-based chakra to create ice, which they could manipulate through willpower alone. This ice is largely immune to fire-based attacks, only melting slightly when coming into contact with flames. Several Yukigekyo ninja also have the ability to use ice release techniques. However, this is not the product of a similar Kekkei Genkai, as demonstrated by study in which a Sharingan could copy the. In addition, unlike the initial bloodline, who could create the user's own ice. The ice release techniques used in the land of snow require the users to manipulate already existing ice. The Yukigekyo ninja use hand seals in their ice manipulation abilities. These ice release techniques commonly use the dog hand seal. Now that sounds useful, Naruto concluded as he read through. But if it's a bloodline like Sasuke team, then I could only use the second style, and there's no way I could use it without snow around me. Okay, next one. The lava release Yoton jutsu are techniques that combine fire and earth-based chakra to create a torrent of lava that can melt away anything. The Jinchuriki of the four-tailed beast made use of its lava release techniques to fight against several Uchiha and Hyuga, though it is unknown if this is due to bloodline or a unique ability to the Yambi. Further study is needed. Well, that's crap. Naruto frowned as he moved on from that. Why put something as useless as that in? And what the hell is a Jinchuriki? And what's a Yambi? The wood release Mokuton techniques combine earth and water-based chakra to create wood. Wood release techniques can be produced from anywhere, including the user's body, as the user's chakra is literally converted into a source of life. Hashirama Senju, yours truly and most coveted ninja in the world, was the originator of this ability, evidenced by the fact that none of his, relatives have been shown capable of using wood release. The first ability to use these techniques was the reason for him, being given the title of Hokage, and with wood release secret technique, birth of dense woodland I was able to grow the trees that served as the foundation of Konohagakure. At least the Shodaime sounded like a pretty cool guy, Naruto said after reading. This sounds so much better. With this I'd definitively become Hokage. Mokuton, a true Hokage's tool. What am I? Chopped liver? The Sandaime asked as he watched from his crystal ball. Okay, and there are only 2 left here. Huh. Oh come on, this is sad. Kinton? Sunaten? The Shodaime couldn't come up with better names? They don't exactly roll off the tongue now, do they? Okay, first thing I do when I get to Hokage heaven is give that guy a lesson in naming and titles, Naruto said, a bit put off by the pathetic attempts at sub-element names. Okay, Kinton. Okay, you know what, I'll just call it Kainton. Sounds cooler and more metallic. The Iron Sand ability, Setetsu ability, dubbed Kinton by yours truly, was a power used by a clan who moved to Suna, a Kekkei Genkai that allowed the user to manipulate iron and various other metals. It is said to derive from watching the powers of the Ichibi no Jinchuriki. Little is known, however the ferrokinetic capabilities of such limit cannot be overlooked. Note, after the time of the Shodaime, the third Kazekage was the last noted user of Setetsu, Kinton. Well, that blows, Naruto grumbled as he read on. It could be really useful. Like with shuriken or kunai. Ah crap. Okay, now, let's call this bad boy Satan. The ability to use sand and manipulate it, Sunaten, is a technique original and exclusive to the Ichibi no Jinchuriki. Has the ability to manipulate sand. A powerful ability. Not to be taken lightly. Well, that sucks even more, Naruto grumbled as he read the end of the scroll. Hello, what have we here? Within the elemental balance there are 12 elements under the power of yin and yang. These elements are the 5 basic elements, the 5 fusions and 2 sub-elements. Earth, water, fire, wind, lightning, wood, ice, lava, sand, metal, crystal and sound. Sound is usable by every ninja with musical instrument. The ability to use Niton, sound release, without a musical instrument is possible with the right Kekkei Genkai, but it is mostly a fusion of wind and lightning-based chakra. For those readers, future ninja of Konohagakure, please feel free to read and try out these techniques, but remember the scroll went on to talk about safety, but by that time, Naruto had stopped reading and had begun to try out some of the elemental jutsu described to him. Too bad that he had very limited time to do anything. In the name of the goddess Inari, Iruka was glad to have caught up with Naruto as he sat in the middle of the clearing. He lay on his stomach, his legs in the air and his palms pressed up against his cheeks. His eyes scanned the scroll with enthusiastic ferocity, the ink seeming to project everything clearly in his mind. Why couldn't my textbooks have been written by the Shodaime? I would have passed after a whole year of school, the blonde mused, ignorant to the fact that Iruka was so close to his favorite blonde student, and by extension his favorite student. If that was the case, Iruka said statically, causing Naruto to jump. Then no one else would pass. You would probably be the only one to understand it. I hear that the Shodaime was simple, like you. In fact, if I didn't know any better, I'd say you were his reincarnation. Iruka-sensei. Naruto exclaimed. Naruto, Iruka said suddenly, his voice harsh and cold. We need to talk. Now, Naruto stood up from the scroll, picking up the one on elemental fusions first as that was the one he was most interested in. He didn't want someone to take it, and hopefully he would be able to sneak away with it once this test was all over. Did I pass? Naruto asked. Iruka raised a fine chocolate brown eyebrow at this question. Naruto, what are you talking about? Don't you know what you have done? You stole the forbidden scroll of the Hokage. Do you realize what that means? That if I learn a technique from here I graduate and become a genin. Mizuki-sensei told me about it. What? Iruka asked in amazement and utter horror. Did Naruto just say what he thought he did? It wasn't possible. The scarred Chunin took a step back as he faltered, managing to catch himself before sweat formed on his covered brow. What? The Sandaime roared. The chunin around him all blanched and froze. The fury in the Hokage's eyes burned with rapid intensity. His advisors had just come in, and had witnessed the small exchange also. They shared a knowing look, their years of experience telling them that something was not quite right. Izumo. Kotetsu. Get me Mizuki immediately. Send an umbu to Naruto and Iruka right now, and so help me if they are not here within the hour without a legitimate reason I will personally see to it that you all be assigned D-rank missions for the rest of your careers. Promptly the two chunin materialized in front of the Sandaime, their bodies hunched over in a bow. Yes, Lord Hokage, the pair said in unison, disappearing soon after to accomplish their goal. The Hokage turned back to the crystal ball, his eyes wide with fury, and his brow knotted in an attempt to sponge the anger right out of himself. Iruka and Naruto stood in silence in that clearing. Iruka began to register what Naruto had just informed the chunin of. Iruka for one could not believe that someone like Mizuki, who had been his best friend for donkey's years, would easily turn around and betray them all. Sure, he disliked Naruto intensely for what he held, but for him to go this far? Something didn't add up for the chunin, and his thoughts turned to being determined to get to the bottom of this mess. Yet despite his faith in Mizuki, he could never accuse Naruto of lying. His voice and mannerisms were too innocent and excited for it to be that. As a veteran academy ninja, he knew when someone, much less a student, was lying to him, and Naruto showed none of the signs of withholding the truth. Naruto, Iruka said, his voice quiet and professional, like when he talked about a particularly gruesome subject. What do you mean by that? He asked. Naruto grinned mischievously, the way in which one does when uncovering a particularly embarrassing secret. You know the one, Iruka-sensei, he said, his tone cheery, playful and without a hint of true malice. The one where I have to steal this and learn a technique from it. All I have to do is show either you or Mizuki-sensei and I pass the graduation exam. Mizuki-sensei told me it was a backup, otherwise I could never become a ninja after failing 3 times in a row. Iruka was dumbstruck. How simple-minded was the boy actually? Sure, Naruto had failed 3 times and would probably be expelled from the ninja corps, but to actually believe that Naruto would believe anything if it got him to pass the academy graduation exam? Did he really expect it to be that easy? I'm sorry to tell you, Naruto, Iruka said, trying his best to sound warm and kind, yet failing, instead coming on as disappointed and angry. But that test isn't real. Mizuki-sensei told you a lie, Naruto. What you stole was the Hokage's forbidden scroll. The punishment for that at best is imprisonment for 10 years. The worst is either life or execution. The words struck Naruto like a hammer. He looked on at Iruka, his eyes wide and his breathing stopped. There was no hint of false truth in Iruka's eyes or his tone, and with one strangled cry from the young boys through, Naruto allowed tears to fall from his cheeks just before he turned to run, leaving behind the forbidden scroll, forgetting that the Shodaime's was in his pocket at that moment. Iruka tried to chase after him, but his eyes caught sight of the forbidden scroll first. With a deep and regretful sigh, Iruka rolled up the scroll, closing the seals as he went, and picked it up. If what Naruto said was true, then that meant that Mizuki was either on his way to get it or someone far worse. Top priority for now was to get the scroll back to the Hokage, but in Iruka's heart a war was waged. A battle between his duty as a ninja of Konohagakure no Sado, under the Sandaime Hokage, and as a human being who had grown to love the blonde-haired brat like a little brother, or even a son. Iruka stopped short a step, and with a turn he ran towards Naruto, hoping to catch up with the boy and comfort him. The best he could do now was try to help the boy the best he could. Within his office the Sandaime smiled down on his crystal ball. Besides him, Koharu and Hamura scowled at the chunin's actions. He will have to be punished, Koharu said, her face stern and mean. He should bring the scroll back here immediately, not go after the boy. We sent those in to you, didn't we? They should catch him. I agree, Hamura stated. As do I, the Sandaime started. But in this case, I think it best that the scroll and Naruto be in safe hands. Who better to comfort Naruto than one of the 4 people in his life? No. Iruka can calm Naruto down so he can explain himself. Then we can have Anko come in and sort this whole thing out. Mizuki was furious. He fumed until his face turned so red it gave Bricks a sense of jealousy. Naruto nor the forbidden scroll were here. They weren't anywhere in the vicinity, and there was a faint remaint of Iruka's chakra. Shit, the chunin exclaimed as he felt the dim trace of Izumo and Kotetsu's chakra incoming on his location. Did they know already? Was this all a setup? A plan to weed out spies and traitors? Mizuki had no illusions that they were after Naruto. If they were, they would have tried to call out to him by now. However, all they were doing were keeping back, probably as a last-ditch attempt to surprise him and take him before he realized anything was going on. Mizuki fled at that moment, not wishing to spend the rest of his life in a prison cell. When I find you, I'm going to rip out your spine, QB scum. Naruto fled the forest. His destination far from Konoha is best. He couldn't face it right now. He had been betrayed, and because of that he was likely to be imprisoned for life and never get to fulfill his dream of being Hokage. In Naruto's mind, his life was ruined. The blonde continued on his path until he tripped and fell on a tree root. He fell face down, his tears now staining the ground rather than his cheeks. Why? He sobbed, clutching his heart tightly. Why did Mizuki-sensei do it? He asked before he began to bang his fist against the ground. Why? 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 Who knows? Iruka lied as he came up behind the young Jinchuriki. Naruto looked up and behind him in blind panic. The young boy had half a mind to run right now, but something inside him stopped that idea. That something was acceptance of the inevitable. Naruto, Iruka said, his voice soft and caring. Naruto turned away, his face stained with tears. He sobbed and cried and tried his best to keep his anguish locked up inside of him. Iruka walked up right behind Naruto, and the blonde cringed when he felt the Chunin kneel behind him. Somehow a pair of strong arms found themselves wrapped around Naruto's neck, holding him in a caring embrace. Iruka buried his chin in Naruto's shoulder, his head next to his surrogate Ototo's. It's alright, Naruto. Let's just get to the bottom of this, and it'll be alright. No, it won't, Naruto said tearfully. It'll never be alright. Everyone hates me, sensei. Ji will hate me when we see him next. I stole something of his and I used Oiroke no Jutsu on him. I can't, Iruka sensei, I was an idiot. I'm never going to be Hokage now and I'm gonna get executed. You're not. I am. I just know it. I'm not so dumb as not to notice that everyone hates me. My entire class. The ninja of Konoha. The people in the streets. Everyone. Iruka held on tight to Naruto as he began to scream and cry in anguish. The blonde didn't try to escape, instead preferring to stay with his old sensei, losing the will to fight on. Naruto, Iruka said softly. You're not going to be executed. If what you said is true, then that means it's Mizuki-sensei is in trouble. You don't have to worry about it. It didn't comfort Naruto, who remained in a state of pain and sorrow. Mizuki watched from his place in the trees, crouching on a large branch and keeping a keen and hateful eye on the two below him. It would be easy to get the scroll from Iruka and kill the Jinchuriki before anything else happened to interfere. His hand twitched as it reached for the Fuma shuriken on his back. He lifted it and prepared to throw it before anyone else came along. Mizuki, Kotetsu, and Izumo called from behind, armed with kunai and their faces stern and hard. Thinking fast, Mizuki flung the Fuma shuriken before leaping after it. Naruto heard it first and with only a slight glance saw the large projectile incoming swiftly. Without thinking, the blonde moved in between Iruka and the Fuma shuriken. Iruka looked on behind him just to see Naruto be stabbed through the chest by the Fuma shuriken, its blade reaching right through his student's body, the point of the blade not too far from Iruka's face. Mizuki leapt down behind them and sneered. Well, a demon who cares about his sensei, he said, his voice overflowing with malice as the body of Uzumaki Naruto fell to the ground, face first and with the life force slowly dripping away. Naruto's body lay in a puddle of blood that was slowly but surely becoming a pool around his cold and prone form. Iruka stood, frozen in shock at the body of his surrogate brother. His eyes wide in shock and fear, his mouth agape and pain carved into his eyes. Mizuki stood right there laughing before with a single burst of speed he appeared before Iruka and slammed his knee into the Chunin's face. Iruka was sent flying back with a bloody nose and landed up against the tree. Mizuki turned to Naruto on the ground. He kneeled down on his knees next to the boy and pulled out a kunai. He raised it over his head and brought it down with a slam right into Naruto's chest. The boy's body jerked up with the impact. Mizuki was quick to remove the kunai and ram it in once again. He continued with this several times before Izumo and Kotetsu interfered. Mizuki jumped back, expertly avoiding the kunai aimed at his face. With a sneer, he leapt back away from the blonde corpse. Kotetsu and Izumo landed, the two Chunin glaring at the traitor. Iruka weakly stood up and stumbled towards the two, his face bloody and his nose broken. Naruto, he wheezed as he closed in. As he reached there, he fell to his knees and allowed tears to cry over the body of his favorite student. So much blood was pouring out that Iruka was almost sick from it. Naruto. No, Iruka, Izumo said. Get the kid's body out of here. Take the scroll and we'll handle the traitor. Iruka ignored them, instead opting for going through several hand seals. Silently he whispered the technique. Hayatan Shimiyake. Iruka breathed out a cold breath of freezing air, blue with cold. It enveloped Naruto in ice, stopping the blood flow easily. Izumo, Kotetsu and Mizuki looked on in surprise. What the? In the office of Hokage, the three elderly ninja watched in shock. Hayatan? Hamura asked, his glasses slipping off. Koharu peered closer to the crystal ball. Is that even possible? She asked. I didn't know that there was anyone who could use natural Hayatan anymore. Especially not in the country have there ever been cases where a Hayatan user has fought and lived. So how does Yumino have the ability? If I remember correctly, the Sandame spoke. Iruka's maternal grandmother was the daughter of the Naidame Mizukage, who also had the power of Hayatan. It was kept very secret and I'm the only one who has access to such information. Sarutobi. Koharu cried out. You should have informed us of this. I didn't think that Kekkei Genkai was active in Iruka. He seems to have inherited more talent from his paternal great-grandfather. Nevertheless, you should have told the council. You would have used Iruka as a breeding stock, Hamura. Just to get either of those bloodlines. Hiruzen. Iruka was not finished with his attempts to save Naruto. Shosen no Jutsu. Iruka's hands glowed with green chakra as he moved them over the wound on Naruto's chest, healing the back as well as the front. Mizuki saw what the Chunin was doing and in his anger rushed towards the blonde body and the dolphin, Fuma shuriken high above his head ready to be thrown. Izumo and Kotetsu leapt into action and deflected the large shuriken, Kotetsu with his shell-like hammer/mace and Izumo with a suiton. The two rushed towards Mizuki, leaping high in the air as he could. Izumo and Kotetsu followed him. Mizuki began a flurry of kicks and jabs at the two as they closed in. With a particularly nasty kick to the face, Izumo was sent flying down and crashing in the ground next to a struggling Iruka. Kotetsu landed against the trunk of a tree before charging at Mizuki again, mace ready for impact. Back on the ground, Izumo moved up from the hole he had dug himself into. "Are you alright?" Iruka asked from where his glowing green hands covered Naruto's body. Izumo nodded weakly in response. "Is he alright?" Izumo asked. Iruka furrowed his brow and shook his head. "I don't know," Iruka replied. "Can you heal him?" Izumo was met with silence. "Come on, Iruka, you were the best medic in our year. There's got to be something you can do for the kid." "I'm trying, Izumo-kun," Iruka said. "I really am." Izumo stood there before a grunt from Kotetsu brought him back to his senses. He leapt upwards to where he saw the battle was commencing. Kotetsu had a kunai in his arm and Mizuki was preparing to launch his Fuma shuriken at the Chunin. As Kotetsu fell, Izumo came up behind him and lifted him up to another branch. "Thanks," the bandaged Nin said to his constant partner in crime. "How is he this strong? I never thought Mizuki was on this level." "He isn't," Izumo said, taking a kunai out. "Something's up with him." The two followed Mizuki as the traitor sped towards Iruka and Naruto, eyes blaring with hate and malice, teeth gnashed around a kunai and a Fuma shuriken in both of his hands. Iruka, Kotetsu yelled to his fellow Chunin and friend. The scarred dolphin looked up to see the incoming figure of Mizuki, followed by their defending nakama. "Iruka, run." Iruka didn't move. Instead, he stood up from where he was healing Naruto and stared Mizuki right in the face. He molded his chakra and formed the necessary hand seal. Drawing up every ounce of chakra he could find, in his anger he focused on pulling water, not only from the grass beneath his feet but from within the air. With a burst of chakra, Iruka called out the name of the technique. "Hayaton, Harimuko." As soon as the words left his lips, the water around him froze into ice. It shot forwards towards Mizuki before forming a giant tiger made of ice. Kotetsu and Izumo were lucky to be able to move out of the way before impact, but Mizuki had no such luck. As soon as it touched the traitor Chunin, the tiger lost all qualities and attributes of animation and stood frozen, pardon the pun. It became a statue of ice, and within it was Mizuki, a look of pain and anguish locked on his eternally frozen face. Izumo and Kotetsu looked on at the structure until a voice broke the silence of the forest. Iruka-sensei, a pain-filled and tired voice, spoke out. Iruka and his companions looked to see Naruto looking up with weary eyes at the tiger structure. He had seen what Iruka had just done, and judging by the smile on his face he had found some sort of newfound appreciation for his teacher. "You've never been so cool," the kid said before darkness claimed him and his head rolled to the side, consciousness being lost to him. Iruka's eyes widened and he fell to his knees to check the vital signs of his favorite student. Feeling a pulse in Naruto's breathing, Iruka let out a sigh of relief. As he did, the ice structure began to crack and spider-web formations began to cover the ice. Izumo and Kotetsu looked on as the ice shattered into tiny sparkles of water, taking Mizuki with it, leaving nothing of the traitor left at all except for two noticeable droplets of red that disappeared into the grass below. The two Chunin jumped down to the side of their school friend and occasional partner. "Iruka," they both said in unison, their relief showed on their faces and heard in their voices. "Are you alright?" "Since when can you use Hayaton?" asked the bandaged Nin. Iruka smiled coyly at his friends, picking up Naruto's unconscious form and walking towards the village. "I'll explain later. Right now we need to get Naruto to the hospital quickly. I froze the blood and wounds, son, not much more would escape, and I did my best with field medic Justa, but it isn't enough. He needs medical attention." "We're on it," the two said, Kotetsu taking the forbidden scroll from Iruka and Izumo leading the way. The Hokage's office had always been a place of comfort for Naruto. A room he would hopefully inherit when he ascended to the title of Hokage of Konohagakure. But now the young blonde found that the very same room he had once sought solace and protection in was now his courtroom, where his fate would be decreed and his life sealed for the crime of stealing a priceless village artifact, albeit under the orders of one of his senseis. The Sandaime sat behind his desk, his back hunched and his elbows resting on the table as the fingers on his hands intertwined and allowed a suitable place for his chin to rest. Besides him stood his advisors, their faces stern and cold. Iruka sat beside him, a comforting hand on his back. Naruto was thankful for that, as it showed that Iruka was there for him, and would be ready to catch him when he fell. Izumo and Kotetsu had handed in their mission report, and remained within the office, their curiosity piqued. That, and they wanted to keep an eye on their old academy school friend. "We'll start with you, Iruka," the old woman Koharu spoke out, causing the scarred Chunin to look up at her. "Why did you never inform anyone about your ability, especially not to us of the village council?" she asked, her tone accusatory and her face showing displeasure. Hamura nodded, agreeing with his teammate. "I agree," he stated. "It should have been brought to our attention immediately. With that sort of ability mixed in with your other heritage, there would have been no need for you to remain as a Chunin. Why did you not apply for the position of Jonin?" If there was one thing these two knew how to do, it was how to make people feel bad with a guilt trip over something as trivial as that. Iruka, as a teacher, knew the trick and preformed it himself occasionally to deal with an exceptionally bad student. Oddly enough, he only had used it once on Naruto, and that was on the first day the two orphans had met for the first time. This sort of secret would be valuable for the village, but Iruka did not want to divulge his abilities, nor did he want to reach Jounin, for reasons to which he explained. I haven't truly mastered my abilities, he admitted, looking embarrassed at that confession. Truth is, I've never really bothered with Hayatan and relied on my basic ninja skills, and I thought that was enough. I only learned Hayatan so that when my children became ninja they would have someone to train them in it, unlike me. Koharu raised her eyebrow. So you do intend to have children and pass on the bloodline Yumino? Iruka, realizing what he had said, looked up shocked at the pair of elders before him. He bit his tongue after he realized that these two were at the forefront of the campaign to call in any bloodline users in the elemental lands who had been cast out from their villages. It was also these two who had drawn up not only the Clan Restoration Act, but had also petitioned for all active ninja with a near-extinct bloodline limit to be pulled from the field and to start procreating right away, despite gender or sexuality. Can you see where I'm going with this? To be honest, Iruka said, his voice silent and slightly hesitant. I'm not really interested in having children. I mean, I have Naruto here, so why would I need my own kids after practically raising him? Said Blonde rose in his seat after hearing these words. It had been true. Since Naruto had been a baby, Iruka had been the one charged with protecting him, partially because he was the only one who offered and partially because he was the only one who wouldn't try to assassinate the Jinchuriki while he slept. He had been watching the blonde grow up, and in a way, Iruka was a sort of father to the blonde. Discarding your personal attachment, Hamura spoke out, you have an obligation to your village to strengthen it as best you can. Your special ability would do well to advance the ninja core of Konoha with the ability to draw water from all places and use it to create ice. Obligation? Asked the scarred Chunin at the conclusion. Jisen Naruto broke out, standing up, slamming his palms on the desk and getting into the faces of the three senior shinobi. What crap are you talking about? Obligation? I may not know what that means, but if Iruka-sensei doesn't like it, then it can't be anything good you're trying to make him do to bail. It was hard for Izumo and Kotetsu not to break out into stitches at that. To see someone, much less the village pariah and failure of the ninja arts of the academy, back-talking the elders and getting right into their faces was just too funny to pass up. They snickered at each other behind their hands, watching the recoiled expressions of the elders and the smug grin of the current Hokage. It was only a dirty look shot from Koharu that put a stop to the snickers of the two Chunin witnesses. The old woman then turned her attention to Naruto, finding her wits about her, and began to yell at him. Do not get me started, boy. Do you have any idea how much trouble you are in right now? Stealing from the Hokage is a serious offense, but the Forbidden Scroll no less. You better pray your thanks to whichever god or deity you believe in and thank them for having us spare you this long, you dirty thief. But I thought ninja were supposed to steal, you old bag. Naruto retorted, unfazed by the death glare he was receiving. He has a point there, Hiruzen said as he took a whiff of his pipe. How are you going to counter that one, Koharu-san? Whilst thievery is one of a ninja's many duties, his first and foremost loyalty is to his leader. Yu Uzumaki broke that law and trust by stealing the most precious relic in the whole village of Konohagakure no Sato. The way you talk about it, you make it sound older than you, which I very much doubt. The room froze, and despite himself, Hamura was found holding back his laughter. The Hokage, however, lost all composure and cracked, laughing like a loon at the twitching eye of the old woman. Iruka blanched at this, embarrassed that Naruto would insult a person, much less a lady who was always conscious about her age, by comparing her to a relic. Izumo and Kotetsu lost it. They laughed at the expression of pure hatred the woman gifted the blonde with. How dare you? Pretty easily, actually. Iruka buried his fist in his hands, his ears red. Naruto didn't really register how much trouble he was in at the moment, and insulting one of the elders of Konoha was not doing him any good or granting him any fab hours. If this kept up, the blonde would be heading to the gallows faster than you could call out a jutsu. You insolent little brat, Koharu said with venom. I was right when I said that you should be put out of our misery as a baby, but this old fool didn't have the heart to kill you then. Calling you a hero and praising you for keeping such a force at bay. I see know that you are not the legacy of the Yondaime, but you are also the third's greatest mistake. Naruto blanched at this. Old lady, either explain what you mean or give me whatever you're smoking, cause it sounds like fun, not promoting drug usage or smoking, the blonde said to the old woman. In that moment the woman looked confused at the boy before it finally registered what she had said. Her face turned pale and her eyes widened in shock and disbelief, not from the second part of his demands but from the first. She had forgotten for a split second that the boy knew nothing of what he held within his ramen-filled stomach. Koharu the Sandaime said, his tone dangerous and reflecting impending doom. If you are so content with divulging Naruto's secret, then perhaps I should send you to the gallows for your punishment? I'll talk to you later. And I would kindly remind you that Naruto is far from a mistake, much less one of my own. As you very much remember. The old woman gulped and nodded, stepping away from the blonde and the Hokage's desk. If you'll excuse me, she said, not waiting for a reply, and began to leave via the front door. Hamura followed her briskly, not wanting to be in a room without his ally to back him up. Please excuse me also, he said to his old teammate and the other room occupants. Sandaime nodded at this. And remember, he warned. You are not to divulge anything of what happened within these office walls, not of the scroll incident, not of Iruka's abilities, and certainly not of anything else. All you may report is Mizuki's defection and swift extermination. No details, no names. He will be held accountable for the theft of the scroll, and no other information is to be shared, or so help me God, you two will wish you had died in the last ninja war. Both nodded before leaving. The Sandaime, the Chunin trio, and Naruto looked on as the two left. Naruto returned to his seat in front of the Hokage, and tried his best to look guilty in front of the Hokage. Arigato, Ji-san. I'm sorry for the trouble I've caused and for that. But Iruka-sensei should choose if he has kids or not. Those two old geezers shouldn't get to choose if Iruka has kids or not. It's not right, and I know what ninja are supposed to do, but please Ji-san, it's cruel to those kids to bring them along just because Iruka-sensei has that special ice power. Hayatan is Iruka-sensei's and he should choose whether to use it or not. I agree, Naruto, the old Hokage said to the boy. Naruto's face lightened up at this, and he smiled at the Hokage. Thank God. I hoped you weren't like those old relics. Naruto, the Sandaime said, his face downtrodden. Koharu is the only one of those two who is older than me. Hamura is younger than me. This is right in the canon. Naruto pondered what this meant for a minute before his cheeks grew red with embarrassment. Oops. Sorry, Gigi. I didn't mean to insult you like that. You look way younger than either of those two goats. The Sandaime smiled at the gesture and notion of what Naruto was trying to say. Do not worry, Naruto. In recent years I really have been feeling my age catch up with me, the old Hokage replied. Now, as we do not need to worry about Iruka becoming a breeding stock for our dear elders and Council, Iruka and Naruto both flinched at that comment. The Sandaime smiled ruefully at the quartet in his office. There is still the matter of what happens to you now, Naruto. Iruka was on his feet faster than lightning. But you just said Mizuki was to be blamed for the theft. As he should, the scarred Chunin roared. Hokage-sama. Kotetsu spoke out from where he stood. I have to agree. If we were still academy students, we believe out instructors as we had been taught to. It's one of the major rules in the classrooms. Izumo decided then to speak with his partner. Well, Hokage-sama, you also have to take into account the kid's state of mind. He just failed the academy graduation exam for the third time. I remember I've seen several people, 3 in our class actually, committed suicide just after they failed once, let alone 3 times. You can't blame him for wanting to not be kicked out of the program that badly. Gigi was all Naruto was able to muster, his eyes averting from the Hokage, tears threatening to form. The tough facade the Hokage had held up in the presence of the Chunin and Pre-Genin broke, and so did the smile that glowed on his wizened old face. Why on earth did you think I would punish Naruto after helping us flush out a traitor? Thank you, Naruto, your mission is complete, he said with a wink. It took a second, but the 4 finally realized what the Hokage meant. It wasn't going to be put down so that Naruto seemed to have been fooled, but that he had been a part of an elaborate plan to flush out a suspected traitor to the village, which ended in success for Konoha. You mean it, Gigi? Naruto asked, his face bright enough, well more than usual, to light up the night sky. The Hokage's grin grew in size. Of course suspicions may arise, as would complications if you were just an academy student, and not an official genin undercover. Iruka could vouch for you and we could forget last year's failing grades, Hokage-sama, Iruka said before grinning himself. You're positively evil. Naruto's euphoria lasted for a couple of hours after that. Izumo and Kotetsu had been dismissed in order for the blonde and the academy instructor to go out for ramen at Ichiraku's. This all has to be a fantastic dream. No one pinch me. Iruka, in a rare mood of meanness, pinched the arm of the blood. Hard. Naruto yelped and jumped up into the air as Iruka snickered into his ramen bowl. Iruka-sensei, Naruto cried out as he landed before enveloping his teacher into a headlock. Is that any way to treat someone who nearly died? Luckily Naruto was the type who usually over-exaggerated himself, and would often say that having no ramen around would give him a heart attack. It was because of this that the Ichiraka chief and his daughter thought nothing much of Naruto's claims. Iruka smirked at his young friend who barraged the Chunin with words that he doubted the blonde even knew the meaning of. It brought a sense of normality to the Chunin, even though he was sure that the blonde would have no more of that after they met with the Hokage again tomorrow. Apparently there was something far more urgent for them to think about, but for the Hokage to actually inform them he needed to collect a few bits and bobs first. Within the confines of Konohagaku no Sato's Kage Tower, there were several underground levels, the deepest of which had housed the population, under the thrall of Genjutsu, of course, of Konoha during the Kyubi assault. The wizened Hokage walked down the spiraled staircase that he'd been built decades ago during the time of the Shodaime, and his occasional burst of Doton usage. Sarutobi Hiruzen continued on his trek to where he had sent him. If Kakashi had ever learned of his existence he would have been furious, and would have killed the person under the Hokage Tower. Heck, most of the Uchiha and Hyuga clans would have backed the decision, but the Yondaime Hokage and the Sandaime Hokage had been extremely careful, especially when hiding this person from the world. Hiruzen-sama, a voice called. At the lowest level was a chamber, as black as night and as cold as winter. Good morning, I mean, afternoon, or whatever time it is. Hello, the darkness greeted. My boy, the Hokage replied. Why is it so dark down here? I know you prefer the light and warmth. I'm training. Training? Nonsense. This chamber isn't built for training. I've told you that you can return to the surface now. Even with the Uchiha out of the way, I'm still a target, Hokage-sama, especially from Kakashi team. I don't think I could hide myself that well, especially from him. Arisha the Hokage sighed, his voice kind and understanding. I know how you feel, my boy. But now is not the time. There is a matter of grave importance that I need you and I to work together on. Hokage-sama, what if I told you it involved Naruto? The Hokage was met by utter silence until a voice rang out once again. Naruto? Naruto found himself once again in the Hokage's office 2 days in a row. He sat nervously twiddling his thumbs as Iruka sat beside him. The Sandaime was late for the meeting and it unnerved the scarred Chunin to no end because as it concerned Naruto it was vital that the Hokage tell him also. However, that also drove a wrench in his plans for team assignments, something he had neglected to do with all the drama that had been going on recently. Gigi's late, Naruto said, pouting, his cheeks puffed up as his palms pushed them upwards, his elbows on the coffee in front of him. Sunlight streamed through the window and into the office, barely a bathing visible beyond its brightness. Naruto scowled as he continued to look out there, his eyes unable to readjust themselves to the brightness of the day. Iruka found himself dozing off as he sat back in the reclining sofa the Sandaime had in front of the pictures of Hokage's past. Senju Hashirama looked down with his fatherly expression, Senju Tobirama with the hint of the hidden prankster in his eyes, Sarutobi Hiruzen with his stern and uptight features, obviously trying to refrain from using any emotion. And finally the Yondaime. Naruto had to admit that the Hokage right before him, separated by time and glass, was nothing like he had imagined him. He had thought of someone who would hold some semblance of fun and passion. Instead, all Naruto was met with was emotionless features, a strict and to-the-book look, and no blemish in his actions whatsoever. He was almost like Gigi, except that the Yondaime wasn't exactly trying to look that way. If Naruto didn't know any better, he would have thought that the Yondaime was a distant relative of the Uchiha, as he was so damn mean-looking, despite his dashing good looks. This is boring, the blonde complained. It's no fun being here, Iruka-sensei. Can't we just leave? Don't tempt me, Naruto, Iruka warned. I might just take you up on that, but I don't want ANBU tracking me down for an audience with the Hokage. Those people hate me and I don't want to be seen slung over some ANBU's shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Naruto snickered at the mental imagery of Iruka being slung over a masked ninja's shoulder, the ANBU occasionally throwing him up in the air to another ANBU and playing catch with the helpless Chunin. Iruka caught Naruto's eye and the disapproving look from the Chunin told him that he better stop with that train of thought before someone got hurt. Just as Naruto looked away, the door into the office opened. Naruto got up and walked out of the side/lounge room to see the old Hokage +1. All matter of life seemed to drain from the universe as soon as Naruto saw the person, as if he were the only thing in the universe itself. His skin was a medium tone, identical to Naruto's. His hair was an odd color, seeming to be the color of blood, but at the same time, a fiery red and a wine-red sort of color. His hair was long enough to reach the tips of his shoulders, but that was just the front 2 bangs that framed his face, one covering his left eye. The rest of his hair was held up in a ponytail, not unlike Iruka's. His eyes were, well, how can I put this, a pair of sky blue sapphires that glimmered in the darkness of the room. He was dressed in the casual ninja jounin garb, the black pants and shirt, except that the sleeves of his shirt reached long past his hand and his flak jacket was not green as the other vests were, but instead it was a scarlet color. He didn't wear the standard issue ninja sandals, instead opting for a simple pair of shoes that covered his toes. His face was handsome, with an influx of beauty and a hint of boyishness. Around his neck was the forehead protector with the symbol of the leaf printed on there. Sorry I'm late, greeted the Sandaime, bringing back both Naruto and Iruka into the world of the not gawking. We just had to stop to get my friend here a haircut. He was awfully stubborn about the style and as you can see I had to meet him halfway, the old man snickered. But now looking at it I should have thought of that earlier. This suits him far better, as I could tell from all the kunoichis who lost themselves looking at him. The young man blushed bashfully. I didn't mean to, Hokage-sama. His voice was like music, a soft and gentle tone that hid the sound of a roaring thunderstorm. Naruto couldn't place it, but it was probably the equivalent to the voice of a kami. Hokage-sama, Iruka said softly as he approached the new shinobi. May I ask who this is for curiosity's sake? Certainly, the Sandaime said as the redhead smiled at Iruka and placed his palm before Iruka, halfway in between them in a wave. But first let us sit. The party of 4 retired to the sofa area. Whilst Naruto and Iruka sat on one side, the Hokage sat opposite. The new member simply leaned up against the doorframe of the side room. Seeing that he was not going to get any more movement out of the young man, the Hokage began his explanation. As you know, Naruto did not pass by any conventional means. He graduated under the lies of a Chunin instructor. It is not only because I have Naruto in my favor that he passed, but it is attributed to that fact that I am honoring the conditions Mizuki set down. All Naruto needed to do was learn a single technique from the Forbidden Scroll and he would pass and graduate with the rest of his class. However, I have also reported the story that Naruto was one of several undercover agents throughout the village to unmask traitors. But this whole episode has brought something to my attention. What is it, Gigi? Naruto asked. Naruto, the wizened Hokage said, turning to the blonde. I'm actually surprised that you managed to learn not 1 but 2 techniques from the Forbidden Scroll. And both of them Kinten too. Within the shadows of Yami no Kuni a figure sat, his eyes closed, and his skin as pale as snow. With a flash his eyes opened to reveal poisoned red eyes. Blue hair framed his face, covering his body in a cloak of sapphire. He's awake, the figure said. Almost instantly the room erupted into blue and green flames. The throne the figure sat on was now visible, revealing that it was made entirely of bones and skulls slammed into a structure of obsidian stone. Jet spikes struck out formed the back of the seat. The figure was dressed in a simple blue robe that was cut low around the chest area, showing of his pectoral muscles. His face was handsome yet gaunt. His deathly pale complexion allowed the black rings around his eyes to pop out as the red glared through. He's free, the figure spoke, his voice venomous yet filled with glee. Big brother is out and about again. Anamaru! The figure called. Instantly a monstrous figure walked out from the shadows. He was tall and with broad shoulders. His back was hunched, and his forearms were gorillish and large. He stood leaning on his knuckles, his legs reminiscent of a dog's hind legs. His skin was orange, and fur in a deeper shade of the same color rested on his head, his forearms, and all the way down his bare back. His face was beast-like with 2 tusks growing from the bottom set of teeth. Yes, my liege? Asked the monster. My brother is alive and awake, the figure said, his face full of dark glee. Go kill him for me. Yes, milord. Kinten? Asked the scarred Chunin as Naruto looked at him. Yeah, Naruto replied. I read it in the Forbidden Scroll, Iruka-sensei. I would have shown you, but with everything and all, Naruto trailed off, his gaze rearing away from the brotherly Chunin besides him. The Sandaime decided that then was a good time for him to speak. Naruto learned 2 new skills from the Forbidden Scroll that involved the manipulation of one of the 12 elements, and one of the 5 fusion elements. Metal. How this occurred is a mystery to me, but through thorough research and consultation on a helpful individual here, he inconspicuously glanced at the redhead. But I have found that within your family, Naruto, there is a special bloodline. Nani? 2 voices rang out. The redhead was taken by surprise and slipped from shock, landing on the floor, his butt now throbbing from landing so hard. He got up, clinging to the door frame and twisting his pinky in his ear. Ow, I think I've gone deaf, he spoke out. Iruka and Naruto hovered over the Hokage, their facial expressions of surprise joined with a look that demanded that the Sandaime tell them everything he knew about concerning this matter. Iruka in hopes of learning about the bloodline, and Naruto in hopes of finally being able to coax the identities of his parents from the old man. The Sandaime, for all his years in his occupation, both on the field and behind the desk, was afraid of very few things. One was Orochimaru destroying the village, another was Jiraiya stopping his writing of the Ika Ika series, another was a pissed Tsunade, and now added to the list was the scene before him, with Iruka and Naruto leering over him trying to gain information from the legendary god of shinobi. The redhead fought back a snicker as he watched the scene before him. Speaking more than one sentence this time, the figure began to relay the information, causing Iruka and Naruto to turn around to face him. You see, Naruto, from your mother's side, a clan from the legendary Whirlpool country, you have inherited a bloodline. This is actually the forerunner of the elemental combos. I'm sorry, Iruka said. But how do you know all this? Questions and comments from the peanut gallery come later, the redhead said. Now this bloodline allows the user to utilize any fusion elements, as long as they have the right chakra nature. If the owner of the bloodline had 3 chakra natures, let's say water, wind and earth, then that would allow the user to use wood, ice and sand techniques. If the user uses earth and lightning as Naruto can, then that allows the user to use the element of Kinten or Tetsutin as Naruto prefers. How do you know? Gigi filled me in, the figure responded. I actually like Kinten. Has more of an orange feel to it. Tetsutin makes it sound gray. Huh? Asked the Chunin to the redhead. The Sandaime chuckled at this as the redhead spoke. Yumano Iruka, Uzumaki Naruto, I'd like you to meet Yumamiya Erashur. He has a form of synesthesia. I brought him here for him to take the place as your Jounin sensei. Iruka and Naruto turned to the redhead, who waved. He, like Naruto, seems to have this strange bloodline that originates from Whirlpool country. His family have been civilians of Konohagakure since the founding, and he is a first-generation ninja, yet he is an exceptional one at that and a true secret prodigy. I hope you can get along with each other. You have the same bloodline? Naruto asked, surprised at this. Erashur nodded before speaking once again. Yep. My family were a branch of the same Whirlpool clan that you seem to be a member of. If you think about it, we're the last 2 people on Earth with this bloodline, seeing as Whirlpool was destroyed. Whirlpool was destroyed? Naruto asked. When? 5 years before the Yondaime took up his post. The circumstances are mysterious, and there is little we know of what happened, but what we do know is that there was only one survivor. Uzumaki Kushina, a refugee to Konohagakure. My family took her in to honor our family relations, but when they died during the war, Erashur trailed off, as if he was talking of something excruciating. Anyway, you Uzumaki are her son, and as the last Uzumaki in name, and second to last in blood, I am the only person alive who can effectively teach you how to fight using your Kinten, and hopefully we can train you to use the other sub-elements. So what do you say? He asked. I mean, sure, you won't get a team, but you'll have me, a distant relative and a part-time apprentice to Gigi here. Iruka cast a glance at the Hokage. One look from the Hokage was enough to cause Iruka to turn away towards the redhead. Erasure smiled as Naruto seemed to contemplate it. No hurry, he said. But I'll need an answer by the end of the day, otherwise I might just go ask if I can train the Uchiha inst. Nani? Jai-chan, I'll take him. Naruto erupted. Hook, line and sinker, Erasure said with a sly grin on his face. Urusai, Baka-sensei. Naruto, you wound me, Erasure joked. Anyway, he said, his face becoming firm and stone-like, said in a serious expression. Without a team, Naruto, you may be severely handicapped. On higher-up missions I will have you work with other teams and even with the apprentices of other ninja around the village. For things like the Chunin exams you will be placed within a team or put on your own, though I suggest the first as long as you get to have someone you trust. The training will be brutal and I will not settle for anything less than perfection after a certain deadline. Do you understand? Naruto nodded furiously. I will, sensei. Erasure gave the blonde a sincere smile. Good. Now we start formal training tomorrow, but first I'm taking you out for breakfast, and we'll spend the rest of the day getting to know one other, so by the end of it it'll be like we've known each other our whole lives. Any other tag-alongs? He asked. The Sandaime chuckled yet frowned, shaking his head. Iruka too responded negatively. With this new development I'll have to go work on the team formations. This means that either we put 2 students with current teams with missing members or we'll have to have a team with just 2, and we also have to take in the fact of the dead last/rookie of the year formation. If we follow that, then we'll be breaking the Ino Shikacho trio, and I don't want them on my backs. But neither do I want any other jounin on to me about losing out on a team. Erasure responded to the Chunin with his own 2 cents. Just give Hataki the apprenticeship of the Uchiha, and send the Haruno girl to one of the teams on standby. How do you dash? You didn't think I wouldn't think this through without looking things up and doing my homework, did you, Iruka-san? He asked with a smile. Come on then, Naruto. I know this nice little place that does a full breakfast. Not even an Akimichi can go up against a full breakfast. Bacon, eggs, sausages, hash brown, black puddings, pancakes, waffles, tomatoes, toast, the works. I've never heard of most of that stuff. Of course you haven't. The place is really small and not that close to the main street. But once we get there and they take up our patronage, they'll probably be rolling in money if what Gigi tells me of your appetite is true. What did he say? That you could eat the entire village and still have room for Suna. The sight Naruto stumbled upon was humorous at best. He had gone to use the bathroom in the Hokage tower first whilst his new jounin sensei went to the gates to wait for him. Naruto had not taken long and had soon went in a desperate run to find his new sensei. He was not disappointed with what he was met with. He was sure his sensei didn't know this, but he was fairly attractive. Okay, understatement of the day. His new sensei was a modern-day Kuros, an eternal beardless youth of great beauty. Let's just say for argument's sake that Naruto knows what this means, akin to Apollo or Tsukiyomi. Let's pretend Tsukiyomi is like that, though I have never seen any art of him as a human. His appearance had startled a couple of people and he had suddenly found himself surrounded by young girls, young women, women who looked as if they were already married, judging by the discarded rings, and even 1 or 2 guys. Naruto couldn't help but laugh at his sensei's predicament. He had a feeling he should help the man, but for the sake of a good laugh he did nothing for now. It was only until Erasure noticed his young charge that the people were deterred from him, though Naruto chalked it down to some mistaking him for a ninja bodyguard, as all of the gawkers were civilians or less. So where is this place? Naruto asked as the 2 of them continued on their way through the streets of Konoha. Not far, but if you want to get there faster, he trailed off as jump leapt forwards and up into the air, bouncing off buildings to get to his destination. After registering what his sensei was talking about, Naruto followed his trail, leaping until he was hovering over the village before gravity decided that it was a royal bitch. As he landed on the roof of another building, Naruto leapt upwards once again, following his sensei's trail. It was almost like flying, Naruto decided. He had never gone this high up before, and it was an exhilarating feeling. Gravity had no control over him, and he was flying for a few seconds before he was brought back down to the ground. Looking towards his sensei, Naruto saw Erasure, as if he was actually flying. Wait a second. Erasure wasn't falling to the ground, he was actually flying. Naruto slipped on his footing the next time he came down out of shock and wasn't aware of his current situation until he came face to face with the ground. After a couple of moments, Naruto decided to climb out of the hole he had fallen into. As he looked up, he received stares of curiosity and some of humor. Before the genin could explode, Erasure landed right in front of him. I was right then, he said. About what? How long it took you to realize I was flying? And right on the mark too. This is the street, Erasure said as he turned and pointed to a building with the logo Mise painted above the entrance. Sensei! Naruto exclaimed, waving his arms in the air in an attempt to display his anger. He charged at Erasure, who simply placed his palm forward and caught Naruto right in the goggles, holding the genin back at arm's length. How could you? Naruto demanded. Easy. I just preyed on my luck and your perception skills, Baka-sensei. It'll teach you to not be so predictable in future, Erasure warned. Naruto began to pout before his sensei enveloped him in a headlock and dragged him into the restaurant known as Mai's. As it turned out, Mai was a young woman. She could cook any delicacy, and had traveled the world in search of anything edible. She had a younger brother who was married to a member of the Okazaki clan of ninja, a clan of ninja in the far-off eastern continent. Mai herself came from Fuka no Kuni and had moved to Konoha a couple of years ago. She had short orangey red hair and grayish-brown eyes and a noticeably large bust. She was really friendly and seemed to be drawn to the color orange, dressed in a long flowing orange skirt, orange doll shoes, a white sleeveless blouse, and an apron over her chest and shirt. Mai was the head chief there and the owner. She was also exceptionally strong as she was able to carry all those large plates as if it were nothing. Orders here, she announced before setting down the food. Erasure, it's so good to see you again, all alive and healthy and eating my food and not dressed like a complete idiot, Mai went on as she hugged the fellow redhead. Hello Mai. Mai let go of the jounin just before he began scarfing down Mai's food. What is this stuff? Asked the reluctant Naruto. Erasure looked up from his plate to see what Naruto meant. He responded when he realized that Naruto was talking about the food. Bacon, sausage, boiled eggs, scrambled eggs, fried eggs, toast, tomatoes, hash browns, black pudding, bread and butter, beans, spaghetti loops, pancakes, waffles with syrup and a small apple. So in short, a heart attack waiting to happen. Mai playfully bashed Erasure over the head. You're not supposed to say that, besides you ordered all of this. Of course I did. He's gonna be burning it all of later when I put him through some light sparring, Erasure defended. And before you ask, I'll be training it off too, and next time I'll get something better for my cholesterol. Good boy. Do I look like an Inuzuka to you? He asked playfully to Mai. Yuck, Naruto said aloud. Both Erasure and Mai turned on his with deadly stares. Is there anything wrong with my cooking? Mai asked, sounding rather dangerous. Naruto quickly shook his head as if his life depended on it, which it probably did from the looks he was getting from the two. No, not the food. The food's great. It's the flirting I can't handle, Naruto responded. Erasure and Mai looked at each other before realization dawned on them, and they both had the decency to blush. We did it again, Mai admitted. Erasure, however, turned to Naruto before explaining. Naruto, not only is Mai married, to a great guy I may add, but she's like an elder sister or mother to me, as Iruka is an elder brother or father figure to you. Naruto nodded at this information, not truly believing his new sensei at all. Finishing his food, the genin looked up once again to see the looks of shock and utter horror on his sensei and his friends' faces. Oh my God, you ate all that so quickly? Erasure asked, his fork slipping from his hold. Yeah, Naruto said simply. Why, is something wrong? Mai proceeded to faint with signs for eyes. Erasure had to finish his breakfast before he took Naruto to a place he liked to call home. Naruto was shocked to find that he was being invited into someone else's home, much less a person he had just met. But he was, and it was really happening. Naruto had thought that Erasure-sensei owned a small apartment somewhere either in the Jounin district, or in the large apartment complex that was easily noticeable, and held all ninja over the age of 18. However, that was not the case. Nani? Naruto exclaimed. You live right next door to me? He asked. Erasure smiled slyly as the blonde ragged with hands and arms flowering and flailing around the place. All these years not meeting his neighbors, and just out of the blue his neighbor turns out to be his own new sensei. Yep, Erasure replied. I own this building. You what? Oh, that's right, you've never paid your rent directly, have you? I forgot it came from the trust fund, Erasure said, slightly bonking himself on the head. I'm such a ditz, I completely forgot. Since when do you own this building? Naruto asked venomously. Arashi's expression turned into that of extreme thought as he folded his arms and seemed to concentrate, in a very Naruto-like manner too. Well, my family bought this complex during the founding, and it was the only property left undamaged by the Kyuubi in the attack 12 years ago. So when they happened, I moved here. I guess G-sama thought this was the best place for you considering everything that happened between my family and yours. Arashi-sensei, Naruto spoke suddenly quiet and solemn. Erasure turned to him and made a HN sort of noise, indicating the genin to continue. Did you also know my father? Naruto asked. Erasure looked away from his student. Unbeknownst to Naruto, his sensei allowed tears to drop and cascade down his handsome cheeks. Hi, he said, hiding the hitch in his voice. I knew him. Please do not ask any more questions on that topic. For your own safety, that information is top secret. I can only inform you if and when you reach the rank of Chunin. Do you understand, Naruto? Hi, the young blonde replied. Just one more question. What is it? Did they love me? Silence reigned supreme in the hallway. What happened next took Naruto completely by surprise. Erasure turned around and hugged him, his arms wrapping tight around Naruto's neck, pushing the blonde's face into his chest. What sort of question is that to ask? Erasure asked. Of course they loved you. They loved you more than the sun or the moon. They loved you more than life itself. Naruto, no matter what anyone else tells you, no matter what lies people spew to you, never forget that your mother and father loved you very dearly, and I'll be damned if I ever let anyone convince you otherwise. Erasure had been a ninja for most of his life. He had seen the horrors of the war against IWA and Kumo. He had seen the remains of the Grand Uchiha clan. He had looked the Kyuubi right in the eye, and he had survived multiple assassination and murder attempts. He had witnessed horrors no normal person should ever have to, but for him to hold firm right now was damn near impossible, as he allowed his grip on Naruto to tighten and a tear to fall into those blonde locks. Kushina would have my head if she saw me like this, Erasure admitted, wiping away a tear. Naruto returned the hug his sensei gave him, burying himself deeper into his sensei's grip. You really loved my mom, didn't you? Naruto asked. A soft yes came from Erasure as the hug dissolved and they moved away from each other. Erasure returned to standing up and abruptly turned away from his new student. Well then, the Jounin said aloud. Let's go in. Erasure opened the door and Naruto entered a new world. What do you mean I'm not getting a new team? Kakashi roared as the Hokage sat in front of him smoking his pipe. Behind him stood the Jounin, all selected to be senseis for this graduating class. Yohei Kurenai, Sarutobi Asuma, Shirane Ginma, Namishi Rado, Mitarashi Anko, Marino Ibiki, Yamashiro Aoba, Tsubaki and Gekko Hate all stood at attention, Anko snickering at Kakashi's predicament. Why, Ginma said to the head of interrogation. Ibiki, why are you here? Surely you're not going to be a sensei again, are you? Unfortunately, I've been saddled with that duty. When you look at how Izumo and Kotetsu turned out, then you really can't blame me. Ginma shrugged as he turned to Anko. And why are you here? I thought you weren't allowed to take on teams ever since you castrated that Hyuga and his father. The little git had it coming. Inbred trap. I have pulled him inside / out by his tongue, the little maggot, Anko replied. By the Hokage decided that I deserved another shot at a team. Personally, if Kakashi wasn't kicking up so much of a fuss, I would be long gone by now. Why am I not getting a team? Kakashi demanded. Behind him the other Jounin, special and regular, snickered. The Hokage blew out a cloud of smoke from his pipe before responding. Kakashi, you have the Uchiha for an apprentice, isn't that enough? Asked the Hokage. Kakashi's look told him what he felt about the situation. Look, Kakashi, I know you're disappointed to not have a team considering what you value as a teacher, but nothing, Hokage-sama. Kakashi interrupted. I was to not only get Sasuke, but Naruto as well. I know he graduated and I want to know why he isn't even down on the registry. Officially, the Hokage began. Naruto has been registered as a genin for over a year, new as an undercover agent hoping to unmask a traitor in the academy. Iruka wouldn't. It was Mizuki. Iruka finished the traitor off after a confrontation about the forbidden scroll that Naruto was able to safely take back. The Sandaime informed them. From behind, Tsubaki, who incidentally was Mizuki's lover and fiancé, fell to her knees in shock and dismay. And Mizuki? A traitor? I wish we could have taken more information from him, but by the time Izumo and Kotetsu got there, Mizuki had already stabbed Naruto right through with a Fuma Shuriken. Izumo and Kotetsu proceeded to attack Mizuki whilst Iruka performed field medical aid for Naruto. For his service, Naruto was granted an apprenticeship as a reward. I entrusted Naruto to a teacher I would trust with my life, and I would thank you, Kakashi, to not speak to me in such a manner again, or else I will have you stripped of your rank and rights as a shinobi. Do I make myself clear? Kakashi backed down, surprised at the words the Hokage inflicted upon him. Hi, Hokage-sama, the Jounin replied. Hang on, Ibiki interjected. You sent Kotetsu and Izumo? Are you requiring a their pie session with me anytime soon, Hokage-sama? How could you send 3 chunin and a excuse me, an unofficial genin, after a traitor with the forbidden scroll? Forgive me, but that sounds rather out of your mindish. I agree, Ibiki. Nonetheless, despite the fact that they lack certain areas of skill, Izumo, Kotetsu and Iruka are 3 of our best chunin, and I trust them. As of now, Izumo and Kotetsu are going under supervision to see if they are qualified to apply for the Jounin exam. Iruka is needed at the academy, and if he weren't, then I can safely say that he would be Jounin right this moment, and be in here with you. A little stretch of the truth, but none the less acceptable according to the Hokage himself. A murmur went along some of the gathered Jounin, and Kakashi flinched at the Hokage's glare towards him, daring him to say something and voice his displeasure at the turn of events. To say one Hitaki Kakashi looked pitiful would have been an understatement. He was a complete and utter wreck. All his carefully made plans, his plots, his schemes, his ideas, all revolving around his sensei's son and his part to play in the growth of the Uchiha, ruined by some chunin who got too big for his britches and some unknown Jounin who seemed to have taken a liking to the blonde menace of Konohagakure. Naruto had been a pivotal part of his plans. Koharu, Hamura and Danzo had assured him that the boy would be of no trouble and was not to become too powerful. His role was to continue the Namake's line and to help the Uchiha grow so that he could rebuild his clan. And although they didn't know it, Kakashi had already begun planning on how he would get Sasuke to become Hokage and defeat his murderous older brother. But all those plans were now gone, flushed away like a piece of crap. The girl Sakura was expendable, but they had been relying on her to seduce the Uchiha, make him love her, to rebuild the clan and shape it in their image, completely loyal to the village and a race of strong ninja. The smug look in the Hokage's look confirmed that he had done this on purpose. He had stopped those plans from coming to fruition simply by giving both the Dead Last and the Rookie of the Year apprenticeships. Kakashi didn't know whether to be livid or praising of the old man's abilities. The Jounin had quickly returned home to his apartment where he simply rested on his bed. The one-eyed Jounin did not simply sleep though. He remained there, his eyes in the photograph of his team. Rin, Obito, Minato-sensei and himself. Kakashi wasn't all bad, it was just his state of mind at the current period. That, and he had honestly been excited to be able to train a team, even if 2 of them were being used. To no limited extent was Kakashi loyal to his village. He would die for it just as he lived for it. He would do any duty he thought was right and just, and if that included the Uchiha/Uzumaki plan, then so be it. But with those plans down the drain, he'd have to think of a new training schedule. Arashi's apartment was not simply one apartment. It was two joined together with a balcony that held a luscious rose garden. The interior was painted with white walls, with red drapes and curtains and even a large red carpet that seemed to cover the two bedrooms and the living room. The furniture was not what Naruto had expected it to be. A two-seater, a recliner and a three-seat sofa, made from a reddish-brown leather. A bookcase filled with titles Naruto had never heard of before and written in some strange language. The rose garden was filled with roses that released a sweet smell into the apartment, though Naruto was quick to notice the amount of roses hanging from the ceiling in baskets. Red roses, pink, lavender, white, yellow, brown, black and oddly enough orange, green and blue roses. I cultivate all these roses myself, Erasure explained as he retired to the kitchen. Tea or coffee? I've got some Earl Grey from Arabian and some instant coffee. Huh? Naruto asked confused. You don't know much about the other continents, do you? Erasure asked. How about some soda? You'll like that. It's water with flavors and sugar and a heck of a load of other stuff. Not very healthy, but it's sweet. Aren't ninjas supposed to eat healthily? Good point. But if you brush your teeth and work it off tomorrow, I guarantee you'd be able to drink 6 of these and eat 2 of Mai's breakfasts after we're done. Erasure stuck his head around the doorframe. Take a seat. Put your feet up. I won't be a minute. Naruto complied and sat down on the two-seater. The sofas and recliner were positioned so that they made a triangle formation around a large coffee table with glass for the top instead of a different, harder substance. I'd like to see this lot survive Pain's invasion in the manga. It was a nice place and held a feeling that seemed foreign to Naruto. Like a Kekkei home? Erasure returned with a tray where 2 glasses resides, within them, a black liquid with an outline of brown. Bubbles swiftly floated to the top, trying to escape where they would fizz as they reached the surface. Also there were 2 plates where a slice of a yellow sort of cream cake sat on each one. Okay, we have cola soda and my personal favorite lemon gatto, the last bit said with a very strange accent. Sensei, Naruto said. When Erasure and in response Naruto asked his question. You mentioned Arabian before. What is it? It's a country. If we were to translate it, it would be Haku no Kuni, of Britannia, an island continent in the far northern hemisphere. Like Fuka no Kuni where Mai-chan comes from, but Mai's is closer to our continent than we are to Britannia. I'll have to remember to teach you about the geography of the continents later on. Who knows when you'll need it, he said before drinking the soda. Don't drink it too quick. You're hyper enough as it is. Naruto grinned cheekily and sipped the drink slowly. Arashi-sensei was right. As soon as it touched his lips, Naruto was filled with a sudden urge to run around and build a couple of things. He jerked back, trying his best not to spill the contents of the glass, and exclaimed, "Whoa." Erasure chuckled before taking the cake and chopping off it. My point exactly, Naruto. There's enough sugar in there to send you to a Wagakure and back 3 times. Whoa was all Naruto could say as he continued to slowly sip the drink. Well then, let's get to know each other, Erasure said as he sat on the 3-seater, picking up his legs and lying down the full length of the sofa. So Naruto, tell me your likes, your dislikes, favorite food, most hated food, color, time of day, weather, season and dream. What sort of question is that? Naruto asked in a deadpan way. Erasure shrugged the best he could as his cheek rested on his hand, where his arm was propped up against the arm of the sofa. His look and action seemed to say just do it, so Naruto, not being one to go against his new sensei, complied. Well, I like training and super cool jutsus. Ji-chan, I am, Iruka-sensei, Ichirakuji. Are me and Mai-chan on that list? Of course, sensei. Anyway, I dislike people who badmouth me and my friends, and the time it takes to cook instant ramen. My favorite food is ramen, though the cake does look nice. I don't like kitsen noodles because, well, I just don't. My favorite color is orange. I like lunchtime, the warm sunshine, summer maybe, and my dream is to one day become a great Hokage so that everyone will respect me. Erasure listened intently to what Naruto had to say and nodded through most of it. So you're simple but with a sort of depth. Say what? Naruto erupted. Erasure chuckled before taking a bite out of the gatto once again and speaking. Well then, I'll go next. I like reading fantasy and horror stories, red, orange and blue roses, the moon, the stars and my student here, he winked at Naruto. I don't like Kakashi team or people who are prejudiced against others, or inequality. My favorite food is sweet and sour with rich and thick French fries, and tuna mayonnaise, though nothing compares to honey. I don't like potato waffles, alpha bites or potato smiley faces. My favorite colors are orange, red and blue. I like the night time when everything is silent. My favorite season is autumn because of all the colors. I like the rain, sunshine and the snow. And my dream is, well, if I were to tell anyone that, they'd probably wet their pants in fear. Naruto laughed at the last part, and fell backwards into the sofa, his food and drink gone. He patted his stomach and it groaned, and closed his eyes. Sensei, I'm tired. That's what you get for eating so much, Erasure replied. But anyway, as your teacher I'm obligated to inform you on what jutsu I have in my arsenal. Jutsu? Oh, sorry, when I get tired words get mutated or mixed up. Naruto smiled at this and leaned forwards, lying down in the same position as his sensei. Sensei, you're not exactly a true ninja on the surface, are you? I mean, you're all smiles and jokes. Erasure remained smiling but his eyes turned sad. Really sad? That's true, Naruto. I don't seem like a true ninja on the outsides, but let me tell you, I hope you never become a true ninja. Naruto was taken aback by this and voiced his confusion. Nani? True ninja, Erasure said, looking away from Naruto, folding his arms onto the arm of the sofa and resting his chin on them. True ninja are dogs for our village. We fight and we kill. We kill kings, emperors, daimyos, shoguns, kages, jounin, chunin, genin, academy students and even civilians, sometimes just because our employer doesn't like them or because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time or did an errand for the wrong person. We kill and we get paid. Ninjas are nothing more than glorified assassins and sluts. We sleep with others for information, we dehumanize ourselves and others for their amusement for our goals. We offer our bodies for the mission and we offer everything we have, our lives, our emotions, our passion, our will to whoever places the highest bid. As ninja, our only redeeming quality is our loyalty to our kage. Those who are not true ninja in a sense are envied by those who are. They can have companions, they can live life by the day with aspiring plans for tomorrow. They can dream and they can stay pure for as long as they want. They can retain their thoughts and feelings and can even love. I am a true ninja, Naruto. A true ninja in the sense that I am a dog for the military powers of my village. I pray to Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi, Susanoo, Inari, and every other god in the universe, the gods of the trees, the forests, the mountains, the wells and the towns, that you never become a true ninja like me. I pray you become Hokage and one day, someone can come along and end all our pain and sorrow, and I hope that someone is someone like you, Naruto-kun. As Erasure finished speaking, Naruto allowed the full force of his sensei's words to hit him dead on. It was unavoidable when he felt the tears roll down his cheeks. Sensei, Naruto said softly, his voice hitching at the sad story his sensei had just told him. Sensei, that's so sad. Naruto turned towards Erasure. Sensei? It was a futile effort. Erasure had already fallen asleep, his head craned so that he was facing the wall ahead of him. A soul tear running down his cheek. Naruto wasn't dumb, so he knew that that was no position for anyone to be sleeping in. Slowly he was able to move his sensei so that he was lying sideways and his head even with his body as it was propped up against a handy cushion. Have a nice rest, Sensei, Naruto said before picking up the tray and taking it into the kitchen, missing the next words that came from Arashi's lips. Ka-san. Otuto. It took Erasure a couple of hours to wake up, and once he did it was already 3 in the afternoon. With all that he had eaten and with his sad story, he had lost quite a bit of energy, and had allowed himself to drop into a dreamless sleep. When Erasure awoke, he found himself not in the position he had fallen asleep in. But he did find a cushion where his head rested. He leaned up and caught sight of his student in the recliner reading a book from the bookshelf. Naruto? Erasure asked, his voice hoarse and groggy. How long have I been out? Well, the genin said as he looked up from the pages. I think you went down at about 11. So 4 hours, Shermata, Erasure cursed as he sat up. He stretched his arms whilst he sat and proceeded on to his legs whilst he stood. I can't believe I was out for so long, he said. He finished his stretching and found Naruto reading. Naruto caught his sensei's glance and had the decency to blush. Gomen, sensei. I was sort of bored and I didn't want to leave you here alone, and with the door locked, so I started to read. This is really good, I have to admit though, Naruto explained. Erasure looked at the title and chuckled softly. Glad you like it. Took me a while to get the research material for that one. Wait. What? You wrote this? Naruto, I wrote the entire top 3 shelves over there. Shadow clones are handy to use when you're bored and have an influx of writing ideas, Erasure said as he turned to the bookshelf. I'm an author of fantasy, horror and adventure books. Occasionally I dabble in M-rated material, but that's not something you should be reading for a while yet. I didn't know you were an author, sensei? Too right you didn't. I go under a pseudonym to hide my identity. There are a couple of people out in the world who are looking for me, and if I didn't keep my whereabouts secret then I wouldn't live as long as I have. Before you say anything, my writing pays for the bills and other stuff since I don't do as much missions as I should. I dislike dipping into my family funds, so this is the only way that I can think of that'll bring in the money. I've learned that if I'm careful I can be a whole different person and bring what little happiness I can into the world. Sensei, you sounded so cool, but the part about happiness was really sappy. Sometimes for the sake of the argument you need to be sappy to make the rest of what you say so much more defined. Remember this, Naruto, if we did not have evil, what would be the value of good then? If there was no darkness, then what is the value of light? Sometimes you need an opposite, even if you dislike it, for you to truly appreciate the things you do like. Naruto looked at his sensei and as the words began to sink in he smiled. His sensei was truly a good man. Suddenly Erasure crashed into the sofa behind him and spread his arms across the top. I'm interested, he said, but who's your favorite character? He asked, looking away with a slight blush on his cheeks. Naruto seemed confused for a moment before breaking out into a smile. Oh, I really like Hina-chan. Her big brothers are so mean. Sensei, you got this from the legend of Amaterasu, didn't you? Erasure smiled. Yeah. I'm really into the whole mythology gig. It's not that popular now, but I've made a name for myself with the whole vampire/werewolf thing. Have you read those ones too? Only one. I thought that Chikage sensei was hilarious. Really. I wrote that book whilst drunk. Or should I say my 7 shadow clones wrote it whilst drunk. Sensei, you're such a bad influence on me. I do try. Sunlight somehow found its way over Konoha at 6 o'clock in the morning when it was scheduled for 7. Naruto put up a hell of a fight when Erasure dragged him out of bed, the Jounin complaining about how Naruto kept his apartment. Really, I should fine you for keeping this place in such a mess, the young man said, pulling on the Genin's legs. Naruto held on to the bedposts as hard as he could, forcing the Jounin to give one final pull that nearly topped the bed over and crushing the two of them. Naruto was not used to being up so early, and he was livid with his new sensei for making him do such a thing. Arashi-sensei, he whined as the two of them walked through the deserted streets of Konohagakure. Why do we have to do this now? Why can't we just go home and wait for a reasonable hour? Because if we do that, then all the good training areas will be gone and used for the Genin test. Erasure responded. Before you asked, the graduation exam was not the final test to see if you could become Genin. The Genin test is the one after that. Out of your entire graduating class, only 9 will proceed in the ranks, the rest will be shipped off to the remedial program. It's like the one you're sent to as ordinary ninjas. If I remember correctly, that was where Hyuga Hayashi went to after he blotched his first Genin test. His teammates never forgave him, and his brother went straight into the program and becoming Chunin and Jounin before his little brother got out. Who's Hyuga Hayashi? Naruto asked. Erasure responded with. He's the head of the Hyuga clan. So he's like a relative of Hinata? Hinata Hyuga Hinata? Well, believe it or not, Hinata is that asshole's daughter. Oh, Kami-sama, how I feel so sorry for her, Erasure said lightheartedly. If I think hard enough about it, I remember seeing her stalk you, Naruto-kun. Naruto froze at these words, turning around to his sensei, ghostly pale and chattering at the teeth. SS stalking? He asked, sounding terrified. Like that guy in your book who wanted that other guy's life? And in the end he dressed up as him and butchered him with an axe, cutting off the guy's testes and his own and transplanting them? Erasure blanched at this, forgetting that Naruto had read Death via Love last night in his apartment. Right about now Erasure was facing the full consequences of teaching his new student the ever-handy shadow clone jutsu just so that he could entertain himself whilst the red had slept the night away. Naruto, stalking doesn't always end up in that. Nor does it always begin like that. Hinata-san just worships the ground you walk on and steals your clothes to get off, he said, the last part full of humor which Naruto missed. It probably didn't help that Naruto had found a book on recent slang terms in the apartment. Curiosity didn't kill the cat, Erasure thought. It just sent a kitsune into a new phase of life and ends with his sensei being driven insane by constant and pestering questions. Wah! Naruto exclaimed for the whole woken village to hear. Hinata gets off on my clothes? She steals my clothes? Holy crap, she's a freak, Naruto cried. Erasure whacked him across the head. Hey! What the hell was that for? He asked. There's nothing wrong with being a freak. For example, I'm freakishly charming, handsome, strong, powerful. You forgot modest. No comments from the blonde peanut gallery. At least I'm not the nut here. Oh, real mature. Shut up. No, shut up. No, you shut up. No, you shut up. Both of you just shut up. I have paperwork/omissions/work/ECT. Today. Several voices rang out from the street around them. Naruto and Erasure froze, looking around to see the annoyed faces of the occupants of those houses, scrutinizing the pair with as much anger they could muster. Both student and sensei had the decency to look embarrassed and bashful. With a quick apology, the two were off and in the training grounds almost as fast as Haraishin no Jutsu. Once within the confines of Training Ground 17, the two got down to business with Erasure going into sensei mode. Alright Naruto, Erasure said, turning on his student. I want you to show me the 2 jutsu the Sandaime told me about. The Kinten ones? Tetsuton, Kinten, Tetsuton, Kinten, Tetsuto, and Naruto said, emphasizing each syllable. Why the hell would you name it that? Kinten is much shorter to say and gives more of an orange felt to it, which I thought you'd like rather than the dull gray, Erasure asked. Naruto looked at him as if he sensei had lost the plot and had begun to talk in tongues or even the language of birds. Heck, to Naruto gibberish would have been better. What the hell do you mean by orangey feel? Naruto asked suspiciously. You said something like that yesterday, but what the hell did you mean back then? Erasure sighed and cracked both sets of knuckles as he stretched. It's called synesthesia, Erasure explained as he pulled out several kunai and shuriken as well as a roll of metal wire, gathering all the metal objects he could that had a hint of magnetic susceptibility within them. It's a mental condition where your brain changes things around somewhat. For me, a certain word, say a name like Sakura, I get pink, or in the case of the Shodaime, I get brown for his first name and dark green for Senju. I knew someone who put colors to tastes and heard a certain instrument when they ate something. Are you trying to say you're mental sensei? Naruto asked, suddenly nervous around his new sensei. Erasure chuckled at this question, taking a kunai and spinning it in the air in front of him before catching it and repeating the process several times. One thing you need to understand, Naruto, is that all ninja, no matter what rank, clan, social status, abilities, or age, are all mental in their own unique way. Take my guy for instance. He runs around in green spandex. Green! I tell you, that man needs to get laid and get his cherry popped. He's that age and he still hasn't screwed anyone yet. Remember this important lesson, Naruto. Screw someone before you're screwed in the head. Naruto simply nodded, blanking out after the name Might Guy, not knowing who Or better question what, he was but simply complying to his sensei's orders. Erasure noticed this and allowed a sweat drop to form at the back of his head. Oh boy, this is going to take a lot of work. Tell you what, rock paper scissors, whoever wins shows the name. Deal? He asked his student. Naruto scrunched up his face in scrutiny towards his sensei. Sensei, he asked aloud. How old are you exactly? That question had been bugging him ever since he had realized that Arashi-sensei didn't look a day over 20. In fact, he looked as if he hadn't left the confines of adolescence or puberty yet. Arashi-sensei looked away with a slight blush on his cheeks. What does that have to do with anything? Erasure asked, trying not to make eye contact with the bouncy blonde. You shouldn't go around asking people for their age, you know? I thought that was only women. It includes people going through a midlife crisis, Erasure retorted. And no witty remarks about me being middle-aged. If I hear so much as one shred of a whisper or a mutter about it, then you can either kiss training goodbye or receive my punishment, he said with a sly grin that was awfully fox-like. Naruto shuddered under the grin. Sensei, you're scary. But anyway, how old are you really? Asked the blonde boy. Erasure frowned before replying with the number. Sorry, what was that? Naruto asked. His sensei had muttered it. 17, Erasure nearly shouted. Yes, I'm Erasure Yumamiya. I'm 17-year-old and a contracted killer. My fate rejected me and I've slept with countless people for the sake of a mission, he said. That satisfy you? Erasure asked, irritated. Naruto looked on in unveiled horror. Well, not so much horror as shock. Sensei, forget it, Naruto-kun, Erasure said, furrowing his brow and pinching the skin between his eyes. My age is a touchy subject with me, he responded. Naruto didn't ask why. He didn't need to. Obviously his sensei was the sort who didn't believe that the young should have such innocence taken away from them. It was the sleeping with countless people part that was probably the reason, as his sensei had put particular emphasis on that aspect of his irritation. Anyway, the redhead finished pulling his hand into a fist and holding it up ready to throw it down. Naruto grinned and copied his sensei. Just watch me, sensei, he said. I'll show you that Tetsuten wants the name I've given and not the one you and Shodaime came up with. We'll see about that, Gaki. First you have to beat me. Tell you what, best 2 out of 3? You're on. Round 1, 1, 2, 3, winner, Erasure with scissors. Seems the best choice, he said. After all, what better way to decide the destiny of the metal element than with something made of metal? Round 2, 1, 2, 3, winner, Erasure with paper. Kami-sama just loves me. Note, in Japanese the word for paper is kami. It is also the word for a god or goddess or god. This is a deliberate pun on Arashi's behalf. Need we continue? Erasure asked smugly. Naruto gritted his teeth and whispered foully at his new sensei, giving the redhead a particularly nasty and dirty look. Naruto, Erasure said with mock shock. Such language, you should either try out for the interrogation department, or a job as a sailor with that tongue. Urusei Arashi-sensei team. The training ground was filled with the laughter of Erasure for a couple of minutes before the redhead calmed down and sat cross-legged towards the side of where Naruto stood. Alright, Naruto, he said, turning serious. I want you to show me this ability of yours. Show me that you have indeed inherited the Uzumaki's Kekkei Genkai, starting with the power of metal. Are you ready? No? Too bad, he said, striding. On your marks, get set, go, and Naruto began flying through his seals. Uchiha Sasuke could not believe his ears. Iruka-sensei, someone he actually saw as someone of any value, despite his low rank and unknown skills, was telling them about Mizuki-sensei being a turncoat and Naruto being an undercover spy, rewarded with an apprenticeship. No way! Kiba exclaimed. The dobe is actually a graduate already? How the hell is that possible? He asked the question that was on everyone's minds. Was the Naruto they knew the real Naruto? Sure, most of them thought nothing much of him except that he was just some dumb blonde prankster. To hear that he had actually been stringing them along was a blow to their pride as ninja. Especially since no one suspected anything except a happy fact. Sakura had demanded why what Naruto did merit an apprenticeship and that Sasuke should have one as well. She was joined by the entire female population of the class, sans Hinata, who had dropped into a fantasy world of Naruto being much cooler and taking her as his. Sasuke himself wondered why he, as the rookie of the year, was not given an apprenticeship yet the dobe had, even if he really was a dobe. As an Uchiha and fueled with their inner desire to be always right and have the law wrapped around their pinkies, Sasuke studied all the rules and regulations in the book, especially the ones about apprenticeships, seeing as he neither wanted nor needed a team to function with. And with all his studying, he had never once seen anything about gaining apprenticeships as a means of great reward except for 2 such students several years ago. A pair of genin assigned to the teachings of the Hokage himself in different times, one several years after the last, though even they were only listed as a reward and was actually a mixture of the sensei actually wanting to take on the apprentice. There was no way a person would be forced to take on an apprentice, especially a powerful jounin. No, the sensei would have to first like the kid, have interest in that student, know a couple of things about him, or her, see promise in the student's future, and have recommendation. It wasn't odd for family members to apprentice each other. However, the practice of apprenticeships were scarce even throughout Konoha's history, as most of the stronger jounin were from clans and were unable to teach jutsus to apprentices, and with those from the same clan it was often the case that there would already be a private tutor at home for them. Sasuke was reeling in disappointment and anger. He would usually see Naruto as an annoyance, and someone beneath him, and his notice. Other times wanting to actually be the blonde or to have his will to keep smiling through thick or thin. Sasuke saw the looks the idiot was given, and though he felt pity, he also felt a twinge of admiration before the blonde destroyed it with his idiotic tendencies and pranks. Sasuke was brought from his musings by Iruka's next sentence. With Naruto's departure into the apprentice shop program, we are short one member. This would mean that 2 people would either remain here as academy students or be put on standby or join teams missing a member or 2. This year it would have disrupted the tradition of a certain team here. Shikamaru and Chuji looked at each other, as if they had dodged a bullet, knowing full well what Iruka meant, especially Iruka's hint and Shikamaru's grades. However, 1 student has been offered an apprenticeships, resulting in the final student to be sent to a standby team. Haruno Sakura, your team will be waiting for you at training ground 12 at 1 o'clock today. Your sensei will meet you outside here to take you, so be ready to go meet them. Nani! Sakura shrieked. I could have been on Naruto no Baka's team? Holy hallelujah! Sasuke leaned away from the banshee sitting right next to him. God, this was excruciating for the ears. And Uchiha Sasuke will be handed over to Hatake Kakashi to begin his apprenticeship. Sasuke perked up at this. Apprenticeship? Him? Looks like someone up in heaven had a liking for the Uchiha name, and demanded justice for what that weasel had done. Sakura on the other hand was brought crashing down. What? I was on Sasuke-kun's team? I and he and we and oh. Several windows in the surrounding areas smashed due to the pitch the pinkette used in her distress and horror. Iruka chuckled as he watched Sakura fall to the ground, banging her head to the floor. I guess that's what you call a catch-22. Either you get Naruto and your team and you also get Sasuke, or you lose Naruto but you also lose Sasuke. They're sort of like a package deal for your case, Sakura. Sakura began to cry and scream, shouting profanities to the Hokage and to the gods themselves and even to Iruka. Said Chunin simply sat back in his seat and took a sip from his glass of soda he had gotten from Naruto the night before. That's probably the funniest thing I've ever seen and the most painful thing I've ever heard. Kinten. Kusari Ryusei, Naruto called out, smashing his fist into the ground, running along with his index and middle fingers still in the dirt, leaving a trail of orange light and raw chakra. As soon as he pulled his fingers out of the ground, his fingers were surrounded by an orb of glowing metal. Shindu, a dart-shaped piece of metal, glowing in chakra, shot forward, followed by a chain of raw and cool metal. The dart impacted with a training post ahead of the blonde. Naruto, with hand and arm movements that would make Suna's puppet users proud and jealous, pulled the chain dart and commanded it almost telepathically. Shindu Naruto would call out just before the end of the weapon shot forward and impacted on something. As the jutsu was cancelled and the chain lost its glow, it fell neatly into Naruto's palm and coiled around his wrist and forearm. How was that, sensei? He asked, hoping for some level of surprise. When Naruto turned to his sensei, he was greeted with a Cheshire cat grin and a small thumbs up. Nice work. Now all we have to do is work on your aim for that and chakra control. I noticed that you wasted too much chakra in the Ainital attack. The more control you have at your control, the less chakra you waste, and it can perhaps make that jutsu even more deadly. We also have to work on using metal on hand. I find that the problem with solid elements is that you need to have them on hand, whereas fire, wind and lightning you can summon and generate with your own chakra. You need to draw out water, but only skilled Suiton users can do that. Doton is probably the most constricting, so I would make sure to have metal on hand at all times if I were you, in case you're fighting atop of water. That includes all Kinten jutsu. Do you understand? Hi, Naruto exclaimed, trying to desperately hold back his grin. Do you want the next one? Is the sky dark at night? Naruto grinned as began focusing on his chakra. Meanwhile, Erasure was doing rounds in his head. His shape manipulation is borderline genius or prodigy level. He probably didn't think all too much on the shape to begin with, a mistake we often make. I'd better not tell him about focusing on shape manipulation, otherwise he'll put too much focus than is needed on it. He did that much damage with just a meteor dart, and that was before he even pulled it out of the ground. By the looks of it, it's obviously B rank, much too high for what he should be at. I'll have to start on chakra control first. Start with the basics using a crash course, but I have to be careful not to baby him. I'll have to figure out what pointers to give him next. Had he been given the chance, I think he would have beaten my record, and instead of my student he'd be my rival. Ready when you are, Erasure called out. Naruto nodded from where he stood. Breathing deeply, the blonde extended his arms outwards, positioning his body in a cross formation. Kinten, Byako no Tsim! Naruto cried out. The chain on his arm erupted, as did all the discarded ninja wire, kunai and shuriken Erasure had dropped before. Suddenly it was all pulled towards the blonde. Erasure was actually worried that he would be cut to shreds by the metal bits if he were hit, but that, thankfully, was not the case. The metal enshrouded his hands, and before Erasure knew it, a pair of large silver claws, almost like a tiger's, surrounded Naruto's hands. They were much larger than his body, probably due to the lack of control Naruto had when he used the jutsu. This was good for fighting giant enemies but was actually impractical. Now we really need to get a move on with chakra control, Erasure mused, and Naruto began cutting things with a fine line of metal wire produced from the giant claws. They ripped up the ground around him when he demanded it, and caused quite a bit of damage. Oh, I'm gonna have fun with this, Erasure said, his tone sounding almost identical to Anko's when she found an unsuspecting toy to torture. Iruka seemed to be frozen in shock. Walking into the administration's building to open up and get the folders out after a long morning of announcing teams and listening to Sakura go on about the unfairness of life, was she trying to obtain Sasuke's interest and affection by going emo now? And dealing with several other annoyances, Iruka did not expect the sight in front of him to be real. Last time he checked, he had left Team 8, consisting of Hyuga Hinata, Aburame Shino and Inuzuka Kiba, in the classroom with Sasuke, who was waiting on his own sensei. Team 8's sensei had been unusually late. Normally, Yuhi Kurenai was punctual and early. Sure, she was friends with Konoha's number 2 resident Psycho, or number 3 considering where you categorized Erasure on Sugar. They had known each other once before and Iruka had seen the effects of the sugar high. She was cold and distant, with a strong sense of femme fatale, but she was punctual, polite, and well-mannered. Her best friend, Mitarashi Anko, was a whole different story. The ex-student of Orochimaru was psychotic, cruel, dangerous, sexy and flirtatious. The famous demoness of Konoha was not one to easy to miss but easy to piss. She put up a brave struggle and deviled in psychotic and masochistic tendencies, and dabbled in some heavy-duty stuff, but didn't all shinobi. She also held up a mask, an emotional mask of carefree and goofiness. In that aspect she was just like Naruto. Heck, they were probably related, but Anko was a woman scorned and a law unto herself. The only person who could control her was the Hokage, who had shown her kindness and trust just after she had been brought back from the pain of Orochimaru. The poor girl had been traumatized and mentally raped, as well as physically raped, leaving her the way she was, frightened, alone and distrustful. It certainly didn't help that she was viewed as the second coming of Orochimaru team. Iruka knew her, better than he wished he didn't, better than she wanted. Inuzuka Hana was a third person in consideration here. The eldest daughter of the Inuzuka clan head, a child of an absentee father who had scarpered after Kiba was born, scared away by Tsum, true according to canon Kiba. She was unlike her mother and brother, and was like her father who followed the medic profession. Though Hana was more of a veterinarian than a doctor or a nurse, she was terrible at being a homemaker, once with a certain incident involving one of her dogs, Guy's jumpsuit and a loose thread on the jumpsuit. Hana was also trained as a shinobi, but only for special veterinarian occasions or times of struggle. She was on the reserve list and was nowhere near to the standards Anko and Kurenai deployed. As soon as Iruka opened that door he knew he had signed his death warrant. Kurenai was lying down on her back, the front lot of her bandage out if ripped away, covering her breasts but giving the impression of a robe. Her legs were at an angle that they closed together until they spread out away from each other at the knee. Straddling her was Hana, who held Kurenai's arms above her head with one hand and groping the area between her breasts with the other. Her clothing was also ripped and torn, as if she had been in a fight with a lioness. Behind Hana was the unfortunate Anko. Anko looked as if she had slipped and fallen so that she straddled Kurenai's angled legs and ended up behind Hana as well. Unfortunately for her, Anko had accidentally moved her arms so that they went around Hana, and as Anko's face was buried in Hana's back, the snake mistress's hands were gripping Hana's chest. All three women looked up at Iruka instantly. Shock across all three of their faces. Iruka stood there, his face registering in shock. Suddenly it became a bored, monotonous and abysmal tone as his face went apathetic and blank. If only Izumo and Kotetsu were here, he said, I'd finally have my proof of their preferences. Suddenly Iruka fell backwards and whacked his head on the wall behind him. The three women scurried to see if he was all right. When they found him, his face was deathly pale, his nose was bleeding profoundly, and he was speaking some gibberish about heaven and his rewards. Now I could explain as to why the three were in that situation in the first place, or I could come back to it to keep my audience in suspense so they keep reading. I thike opt tai noen. 2. Team 8 were still waiting for this Kurenai lady 2 hours later, just half an hour after Iruka had left to go to the administration's building for his new duties until classes started up once again in the new term. Kiba had retreated into talking to Akamaru on his head. Shino was silent, sitting in the back of the class in complete and utter silence, probably communicating with his bugs. Hinata had opened up a book she had found in the back of the class, something about the history of the village of Konoha, a recent edition added last year. Sasuke was able to occupy himself by drawing doodles of the Sharingan on a piece of plain white paper he had nicked from Iruka's desk. 10 minutes later Kurenai finally made it, rushing into the room, slamming the sliding door across and calling into the room, panting heavily. Team 8? She asked. Shino, Kiba and Hinata got up and walked to the door, only to stop suddenly to see Kurenai's state of dress or undress as the case may be. Kiba and, surprisingly even, Shino turned beet red at the sight and had proceeded to fall unconscious from blood lost through their noses. Hinata was different, however. Obviously, as a straight girl it was positive that she would have a different reaction. True enough, her reaction was to go green, no in disgust or sickness, but in envy. The woman before her, whom she had known for a long while, was looking like a cheap hussy or a hooker. The Hyuga's body shook in silent jealous rage. Sorry I'm late, Kurenai apologized. I got into an argument with Hana and Anko and Iruka had to step in. Had his sister not been in the fight, and had he been conscious, Kiba would have come out with something like Iruka-sensei is a lucky bastard. The scene before him had shocked Sasuke. A slight blush tinted his cheeks as he turned away with an annoyed expression plastered on his face. Once Team 8 left, Sasuke was left all alone in the classroom. No Sakura. No Naruto. Neither of the two who could and probably would have been his teammates. Sakura, in Sasuke's book, was weak, slutty, had nothing for her. She was of low birth, with no connections in upper society, wasn't very strong and didn't have much financial support. She had very few good points. Her parents were both on the civilian council, she had excellent chakra control from what he could see, although she did have small chakra reserves, and she had intelligence. But she was a rotten hypocrite, and a bully to those who didn't fit in with her idea of a perfect life. Naruto was a different story. For years now Sasuke had held a deep loathing of Naruto, a loathing that brought up feelings of jealousy that Itachi could only muster when it came down to comparing the skill of the two Uchiha brothers. He was loud, brash, idiotic, socially retarded and was an orphan. He had nothing to give to the world, no money, no connections, nothing. Yet despite all this Sasuke could not help but feel a large pang of regret for not befriending the blonde. You didn't expect that now, did ya? Naruto, hated by nearly everyone in the village, a pariah, bright, cheerful and determined. Sasuke's opposite in everything but the last. That determination that they both shared was something that Sasuke had once believed, and still did believe, could make them allies, should Naruto just advance with his ninja skills a bit. Sasuke could not explain the feeling he got around the blonde, like there was light at the end of the tunnel, that somehow it would all work out. After the Uchiha massacre, Sasuke had met with Naruto by complete accident. The blonde had consoled him and invited him to play catch immediately after. Sasuke was bitter and angry, so it was no wonder that he snapped at Naruto then for saying something like that, then turning around as if it was something as little as losing a rusty kunai. The blonde just took it into stride, however, and asked Sasuke to play catch. When asked, Naruto replied that he needed something to take his mind off of the massacre, otherwise it'd eat him up. He hadn't really talked to Naruto that often. The most interaction they did was when Sasuke made fun of the blonde in class. It was unexplainable how the blonde made him feel even without talking to him. It was like some sort of magnetic energy that drew Sasuke to Naruto's personality. Sasuke, realizing where he was heading, cut off that train of thought and returned to doodling on that piece of paper. Suddenly a voice rang out. I see you've decided to use your time well, someone said sarcastically. Sasuke looked up into the face of Hatake Kakashi, the person that was to be his sensei, although he didn't know him yet. Sakura was nearly in tears when her sensei came to pick her up from outside the academy. He was tall and with broad shoulder, and a body that screamed taijutsu freak. He had bushy eyebrows, black, beady eyes, and wore a jounin vest over a ridiculous, bright forest green spandex one-piece, using his headband as a belt with a red sash instead of the regular blue or black. Around his legs were a pair of orange leg warmers, just over a pair of blue ninja sandals. Greetings, Sakura-chan, he yelled. Your flames of youth burn brightly today. I am Might Guy and I am your sensei. Ano, Sakura said nervously. Guy-san, sensei. I'm Sakura. That's an old civilian, Sakura called over to him, taking his notice away from a frail old man who was absolutely terrified of the jounin in front of him. The entire street scampered away like rats, leaving Sakura with the nut job of a sensei before her. Guy looked over to her and, taking his obvious mistake in stride, walked over to her and enveloped her into a bone-crushing hug. Yash, he cried. Sakura-chan, you are as lovely as Iruka-sensei said. Remind me to kill Iruka-sensei later, Sayareno, her inner self said. I'll remind you and I'll help you out with that, sister. Sakura was abruptly led, or dragged as her case was, to an old and semi-abandoned training ground in the middle of the Konoha woods. Apparently this was training ground 12. Sakura was instantly led to meet a young miniature version of her sensei, except he had round eyes, bandaged hands and no jounin vest. He smiled bright enough to blind the poor pinkette. Ha! Poor! Who am I kidding? Though I think putting her with Guy is a little over the top. Sakura. This is my very youthful student Lee. Lee is somewhat of a son to me and an excellent example of youth. Isn't that right, Lee? Yosh. Gi-sensei. I do my best to make you proud and to intensify my burning passion and flames of youth. Yosh Lee. I salute your youth as it brings a tear to my eye. Gi-sensei, Lee, Gi-sensei, Lee, Gi-sensei. Q-wave on beach, sunset and rainbow genjutsu that everyone seems to use, though I've never quite seen in canon. Sakura turned away, traumatized by what she had just witnessed. Did that just happen? She asked the bun-haired girl in front of her. She nodded in dismay. Don't worry, she said. You'll hopefully get used to them. I'm Tenten, by the way. I'm a weapons specialist, Sakura. I don't know. What were you good at in the academy? Tenten asked, surprised. Sakura shrugged. Well, books mostly. I was the smartest in my class and graduated in second place for my intelligence. I can dispel genjutsu, and I've got 9 out of 10 in my kunai, and Shuriken. Tenten's face turned into one reminiscent of a foul stench in the air. What? Sakura asked. So in total you're useless. Tenten's words struck Sakura like 1,000 knives as the pinkette registered what she had just said. Asuma had a good life for the most of it. He was the eldest son of the third Hokage. Something that many people would kill to have, as it not only gave Asuma high connections and good social standing, but it also he had the best sort of private tutor at home. He had become one of the 12 ninja guardians of the Fire Country's daimyo, something that furthered his profile as a ninja. He had a high bounty of 35 million ryo from his escapades as a guardian, and he was voted number 3 in the Konoha's most eligible bachelor right after Reito at number 2 and Iruka, surprisingly, at number 1. He had killed thousands of enemies and saved countless nakama, and was actually quite popular, despite his smoking habits. He had faced the Kyuubi, faced Forgen Jinchuriki, and fought in countless battles. Nothing seemed to scare him. That is, nothing except Yamanaka Ino. The blonde-haired girl, a bossy and pompous heiress to a minor clan of Konoha, stood before him, yelling at him and her teammates, his other students, for being lazy, for smoking, and for being a pig. Shikamaru and Chuji sat either side of their new sensei at the barbecue that Asuma frequented. The meat on the grill in front of them sizzled and browned, bringing a drop of drool falling from Chuji's wavering and Antoime's mouth. Ino sat with a pathetic portion of a salad in front of her, chewing slowly to savor her meal. Shikamaru sat with a bored look, his cheek propped up against his palm as her glared at the grill. Asuma looked between the two boys and then towards Ino. "So," he said, dragging out the word. "Tell me a bit about yourselves," Asuma said, taking his cigarette out and ramming it into the ashtray. "Troublesome," Shikamaru said just before Chuji dug into his meal, pulling the meat off the grill as if his life depended on it. Ershur smiled as he looked up at the sun, checking the time. 1 o'clock. He turned to Naruto, who had been attempting to walk up trees with chakra for several hours now. The poor blonde was almost at breaking point, and Ershur knew that if he didn't stop him soon Mt. Saint Naruto would blow. "Naruto-kun," Ershur called up as Naruto ran towards the tree. Fortunately he stopped before he smacked the tree and ended up kissing bark. "That's enough for now, come have some lunch," the Jonin said, holding up a backpack where a bottle of soda popped out. "When did you get that?" Naruto asked as he ran up to his sensei. "I sent a shadow clone home." The two sat down cross-legged with the bag between them, Ershur taking out the large bottle and 2 plastic cups, pouring out the black liquid of cola into them. Naruto took the drink and held it to his lips before his face was set into one of thought. "Arashi-sensei," Naruto said, his voice unsure about what he was going to ask. When Ershur replied with a Naruto continued to ask the question. "Why do I need to climb trees and jump? I mean, what good will that do me?" he asked. Ershur looked at his young charge for a moment before speaking. "Well," he said, "despite being a practical skill that you can use to scale buildings, it also fixes your chakra control, which you are atrocious at." "Chakra control? You know what chakra is, right?" Ershur asked. Naruto nodded in response. "Well, chakra control is what is used so that we don't blow all-out chakra on 1 or 2 jutsus that don't really require anywhere near that level of chakra. It's like the clone jutsu. You, as an example, put too much chakra into one clone or a small number. If you use the same amount of chakra but a higher number of clones, then you would have passed that portion of the exam." "Nani?" "Chakra control," Ershur continued, "can also be used to advanced techniques. The more advanced chakra control techniques give you skills like walking on water." "You can do that?" Naruto asked, surprised. Ershur nodded with a smile. "All ninja who have learned the skill can do it. I know how to do it, and by the end of the week you sure as hell will know how to do it. However, water walking and tree climbing are not the only things you can do. For example, I've made several of my own techniques. You saw the flying I did the other day?" "Yeah." "Wait, that was chakra control? A jutsu I devised using perfect control. Bukujutsu. It allows the user the ability of flight without the use of hand seals, requiring nothing but chakra control. It's an advanced form of my sky platform jutsu. That one is an evolution of Water Walker and gives the user the power to walk on nothing by air." "Suga," Naruto said in awe. Ershur smiled and told his student to watch. As soon as he did that, Ershur began to take large steps. Each time he did, his feet would not fall to the ground, rather just remaining there, and seem like ordinary steps. "That's awesome," Naruto exclaimed. "Thanks," Ershur replied, canceling his chakra and falling to the ground. "Here's another one," he said, plucking out 3 hairs from his ponytail, and dangling them in front of Naruto. Channeling the chakra, the hairs went stiff and needle-like as they pointed to the ground. Ershur encouraged Naruto to touch them, which he did, pricking his finger and drawing blood. Chakra control can be used to warm water, cut objects, channel your chakra, as well as having several other uses. I remember that the Sannin Tsunade could punch a hole through a mountain with just chakra control. Impossible. Don't knock it until you've tried it, Ershur joked, raising his fist. The 4th Hokage even used chakra control to help with his famous Hiraishin no Jutsu. It became the Shuinpa before it was Hiraishin. The user could move faster than the eye can see. Not even the Byakugan or the Sharingan could keep up with it. I myself am a practitioner of Shuinpa. Before you reach Chunin, Naruto, you will have mastered all of these and more techniques that will put you at the top." Naruto's eyes widened and sparkled. "You mean it?" Ershur blanched at this. "No. I'm telling you so I can get a kick. Naruto seemed downtrodden until he saw the mischievous glint in Arashi's eyes. Arashi-sensei. Erasure smirked as Naruto glided across the water. After tree climbing reached its abrupt end, they had started on the walking of water. Naruto needed to learn how to mold his chakra to suit the situation. It required constant motion and balance. It was then that Erasure realized that Naruto's personality was just like his chakra. Constantly moving. It was why he had learned water walking so quickly. Now a whole week of chakra control exercise had resulted in Naruto developing the water glide, where a person more or less used the surface of water as one would use the surface of ice to skate. To Arashi's horror, the brat could do something he was unable to do. Keeping a constant flow of chakra deviating from one foot to the other, utilizing it on water. For the Jounin it was hard enough to do it on land, let alone a liquid. Air was the easiest to try it on, but then again walking on air was the hardest one to master in the first place. As Erasure stood in the middle of the lake, a joyous Naruto skated rings around the poor redhead. How Naruto laughed at the eye-twitching sensei. Ichwai Arashi-sensei. Am I doing good? Poor Naruto had no idea that every word he said and every ring he skated brought an evident punch ever closer towards his face from the fuming Jounin. The last week had been long and strenuous. Naruto had taken 3 days to learn tree climbing and was still shaky when it came to it, but water walking was like he was built for it, or it was built for him. With constantly flowing chakra it was dangerous for someone to keep using it for over an hour unless you were fighting or continuously leaping around, but they brought their own dangers. It was lucky that both Naruto and Erasure had high reserves of chakra, as a Jounin and Jinchuriki would have. P.S. Naruto still doesn't know. Alright, Erasure said, his voice laced with venom. Naruto, let's get off the water. It's time. I think I taught you a jutsu. Naruto abruptly stopped, yet still managed to stay atop the water, not faltering even for a second. Damn this brat. Even when he's not thinking about it he's a master. Naruto's eyes brightened up and he bounced all the way over to his sensei. Really? He asked, coming close to the Jounin. Erasure stepped away slightly afraid that the blonde was going to maul him if he didn't teach him a new jutsu soon. Erasure nodded and indicated for the blonde to follow him off the water and on to dry land. The pair moved a decent distance away from the water when Naruto turned to Erasure. So what are you gonna teach me, sensei? Spiting fire? Blowing things up? Do you know any Tetsuya Kinten jutsu? The blonde asked in rapid succession. Erasure tried his best to keep up with the blonde via lip movement, finding it hard to actually do so. The redhead said. First we need to talk, Naruto. Erasure said to him, sitting down cross-legged, ushering Naruto to follow his lead. It's about our Kekkei Genkai. Hearing this, Naruto followed suit and joined his sensei in sitting Indian style. What about it, sensei? I think it's about time you learned what it actually is, Naruto. I know what it does. It combines whatever elements our chakra align with and creates sub-elements. That's only part of it. Naruto's facial reaction prompted Erasure to continue with his explanation. Our Kekkei Genkai is called Nanatenu. The bloodline is not just any typical bloodline, Naruto, not even by elemental standards. You see, there are Kekkei Genkais out there that allow the users to combine the elements, use the normal elements without hand seals and manipulate it as an extension of themselves. There are also bloodlines that deal with the sub-elements. Now there are 12 elements. Yeah. The scroll told me that. Naruto interrupted. Earth, water, fire, wind, lightning, wood, ice, lava, sand, metal, sound and crystal. Very good, Erasure praised. Doton, Sueton, Katon, Futon, Raiton, Mokuton, Hyaton, Satan, Kinton, Yoton, Niton and Shoton are the styles used in modern jutsu. However, the last 7 elements are unusable to anyone not born with the Kekkei Genkai that allows it. Now our Kekkei Genkai is different. Instead of just one of these 7 we are able to change our chakra natures to suit all of them. With Niton and Shoton you need nothing but your own will to do the technique. However, as we hold this Kekkei Genkai that fuses elements, we are void of ever being able to produce any of the 5 basic elements. Our chakra changes affinities and cannot become separate entities. They are fused as the 7 elements not used by normal means. You may use them to create the other elements, but we will never be able to use average elements. That is why our powers are called the 7 heavenly kings, so we can only use the secondary elements. How does that work? Oh boy. Listen. Our chakra fuses the elements. I is not naturally aligned to one specific element. For all intents and purposes we are elementally blank. When we use our jutsu, we are separating our chakra. Our Kekkei Genkai didn't start off as elemental-based. It began with a genetic mutation that formed our chakra, then instantly separated it. Once brought together, it made something completely different. A different sort of chakra. Because it was learned that we could have access to all 5 elements, and combine them, our ability was classed as a Kekkei Genkai. Like all bloodlines, we began as a genetic mutation, so once our ancestors learned about the elements, and aligning our chakras to a specific element, they could create the sub-elements? We essentially have 2 chakras within us. However, it is virtually impossible for us to align an element to both chakras. Within our bodies lie somewhat of pools. In every human there are pools that are linked to the elements. The largest pool is our essential element, and the governing element in our chakra. However, our pools are even, and can only be joined to one of our chakras at a time. However, there are or were records that in the past there were those who were able to create a third chakra and create a tri-element. One such example is Storm Release. Another would be, well, to be honest, Storm Release is the only one I can remember. Suggestions needed here. Then what elements are we able to use, Arashi-sensei? Naruto asked. Well, the elemental fusions take two elements and combine this. This much you know, and the elements we make require the natural elements for their existence. Fire mixed with earth creates lava. Lightning mixed with earth creates metal. Earth and wind equals sand. Wind and water creates ice, and water and earth generate wood. Out of them all, the earth element has the most influence in the fusions. Then what about Shotan and Nitan? Naruto inquired. What about them? Don't they use the 5 elements to exist? You think they would? Naturally, Nitan is actually a combination of 2 elements, no matter which. It can also be made by any of the elements combining, depending on which sound you want, like smashing lighting against the ground for a shockwave or using water and wind for illusion-inducing sound. We as the holders of the Nanotenu do not require the use of instruments for Nitan, nor do those with the natural Kekkei Genkai for it. And Shotan? Well, Shotan is exactly the same. It's like that because it can crystallize anything: earth, water, fire, air, lightning, and virtually every substance in creation. Shotan requires a massive amount of concentration because you are not using an element, you're crystallizing it and manipulating whatever is made from. Our chakra uses the elements and crystallizes something so we can manipulate it using the crystals as a medium. This is the basic sense. Despite what I said earlier, we can crystallize the basic elements, however we do not control them. Our chakra control actually does the controlling there. Sensei, I think you repeated yourself a bit, Naruto joked. Erasure smiled at the grinning genin before him. He stood up abruptly and stretched. Well then, he said. No time like the present. Let's start learning that jutsu. Wait a second, Sensei, Naruto said suddenly. I know I like metal more, but what element do you use the most? Do you only use 1 or 2 elemental combinations? Asked the genin. Erasure grinned at this before starting off with hand seals. Shotan, Sway Sho too. Iruka groaned as he put his hand to his forehead. I might as well be Hokage. I do most of the paperwork for him anyway, he stated as he signed off another mission report. Walking into the room and hearing what Iruka said, the Sandaime chuckled. If only you were a high-class jounin, I might have selected you to be one of my successors as Godaime. Iruka groaned. Why did I ever fall in love with teaching? Look on the bright side, the Sandaime chuckled. Naruto would probably never made it past his first year in the academy had you not been there, and you probably wouldn't have the same relationship you have now. That's the only upside? Got anything else? Hiruzen smiled and shook his head. I still can't believe you saw that catfight last week. I was reeling in shock after I heard about it. Reeling in shock or from blood loss? Iruka asked dryly. Sarutobi snickered at his words, not trusting himself to say the wrong thing. He sometimes wondered if Iruka's greatest power was his kindness or his ability to bore his enemies to tears or death with his rants and his lectures. One thing was for certain, he did not want to die listening to Iruka's lecture. So how is Naruto? Have you seen him recently? The Hokage asked. Iruka nodded. Yeah. He seems to be having fun. Arashi-kun came to me the other day to request my help teaching him Hayatan at a later date. Apparently Erasure never learned how to do it, so he'll be sitting in on the lessons to learn a thing or two. Iruka, you amaze me. Here you are, still a chunin, and you're going to be teaching one of the most powerful ninja in the village and treating him as if he were academy student, the old man told him. I might look in on these lessons myself for a kick. Poor Arashi-kun, having a chunin teaching him to do a jutsu. Hokage-sama, Iruka said. Arashi-kun is perfectly capable to taking care of himself, and he didn't seem too concerned about his pride then. So you're not concerned for your kohai? Not in the slightest, Iruka retorted. The chunin returned to doing the Hokage's paperwork when the door opened. Iruka and Sandaime looked up to the grinning visage of Midarashi Enko, snake mistress of Konohagakure. Enko? Iruka stuttered at her appearance, wary of the large sword she carried across her shoulders. Mission accomplished. And I took out a legendary swordsman of the mist while I was at it, Enko exclaimed, strutting in as if she owned the place before stabbing the large sword into the ground. Shiba Kaien was defeated by yours truly. I even have the head to prove it, she said, bringing up a small sack where droplets of red fell to the ground. Wanna see? Maybe later, Iruka responded. Enko, your mission was to act as a bodyguard for a political liaison to Kirigakure. Don't tell me you caused trouble for us again? He added. Enko grinned in a mix of bashfulness and mischievousness. Well, you see, he was sort of the liaison under a henge. What? Sandaime asked in horror. That man was extremely close to Hai no Kuni's daimyo. He switched before we met the guy. He tried to rape me, so I castrated him first before I dealt with him. Don't say that with a grin or in that manner, Iruka roared. Enko, what the hell possessed you to kill him? He's wanted by Kirigakure alive. He's the last of his clan of sword masters. How exactly are we going to explain this to Kirigakure? Good thing I put his balls on ice then, isn't it? Enko, what are you? She asked, using the old childhood nickname she had given him during the second part of their chunin exams. Iruka had gotten revenge for her ambush by beating her rather horridly during the final rounds, where she ended up bruised, hurt, and in the nude in front of the entire stadium. Alright then, Iruka announced a couple of days later when he, Erasure and Naruto sat in a circle, a scroll in front of each of them. Now ice jutsus are easy enough to follow. I hope Arashi-kun has taught you plenty on elemental chakra, Naruto. Hi, Iruka-sensei, the blonde replied. Excellent. Well anyway, ice jutsu depend on water and wind elemental affinities. Erasure has already explained to me the Cliff Notes version of your Kekkei Genkai. He repeated himself, didn't he? Naruto asked with a sly grin. Erasure shot his head to face Naruto and scowled. Alright then, tonight, 10 laps around the training field. Nani? Well, Iruka interrupted. Hinata is easy enough to understand. You use the wind chakra to draw the heat from the water and you use the water chakra to move and manipulate the ice. The second part is how Yukigekyo ninja were able to learn their own bastardized version of Hinata. They use Suiton, they just named it differently. However, with Hinata, it is important to focus on shape manipulation. Wood generally doesn't require it, fire only needs it for the initial execution, and lightning is a no-brainer. But the other elements such as earth, wind and water require adept skill at shape manipulation, which you need chakra control for. Arashi-sensei is teaching me how to walk on air next, Iruka-sensei. It's just like water walking, but you have to make your chakra denser and you have to focus on the chakra in the air, Naruto blurted out. Iruka turned to a red-faced Erasure. Arashi-kun? Iruka-senpai, please don't ask. The brats rubbed it in enough how good he is at water walking. Is that so? The Chunin asked. Well then, that is great. Certain chakra control exercises linked to certain elements help us with our balance with our elemental chakra. Water walking and this airwalk technique of Arashi's will really help you. Really? A glistening-eyed Naruto asked his sensei, adoration set in his features. You mean it, sensei? Ah, sensei, you're so sly. Actually, Erasure thought I never actually knew that. Huh, I wonder what the fire chakra control exercise is then? Alright, Naruto-kun, Arashi-kun. I'm going to show you an ice release jutsu and how to use it. I want you to try and practice it and master it within the hour we've been given. That sound alright to you, Erasure? Sure, it's fine. Okay then. This jutsu is called Hinata. Sabane Fubuki. Iruka went through the process of showing the hand seals necessary for the jutsu. Erasure got to work right away, practicing the hand movements without any chakra being channeled. Then I want you guys to focus on your chakra into water and wind and allow them to combine into ice. That's it, Naruto. Naruto's chakra was already in the process of combining the chakra. Okay then. Now all you have to do is manipulate the chakra and shape it into needles. From all those needles you need to make a bird's shape. The lake, he said, indicating to the body of water they stood against, has the water, and I want you to push your chakra into there. As soon as it touches it'll freeze. The two did as Iruka said. Erasure pushed his chakra in first, and all that was able to come out was a trio of swallows, each as long as a fox. Focusing more, the red-haired nin continued until he only had 5 swallows in the air. Seeing his sensei's achievement, Naruto got to work doing what Iruka had taught him to do. All he got was one deformed swallow, and several boulders made of slush. Nanny! Erasure chuckled at his student's plight. Naruto turned his head to meet his sensei's. The redhead saw this and grinned. Looks like your chakra control still needs a bit of work, Lil Naruchan. Arashi-sensei no baka, Naruto exclaimed, rushing towards him. What the hell are D-rank missions? Naruto asked as he stood in the middle of the assignment room. The Sandaime, Iruka and several other officials who handed out missions sat in a horseshoe formation behind desks around the room. I don't like the sound of it, Naruto admitted. Too right you shouldn't, Erasure agreed, turning to the old man. G-san. Why the hell are we doing D-rank chores? Apprentices go straight into C-ranks. His outburst caught the attention of the other officials who all turned to him. The Sandaime rubbed his head, getting ready for the pain he was about to go through. It was decided that Naruto is not yet ready to enter straight into any C-rank missions. In fact, there is a request that Naruto be placed on a time just like everyone else. Be thankful that you're still in an apprenticeship, Naruto, otherwise you and Erasure would be separate. Take your pick, C-rank or separation? What the Fuji-chan, is that old man and Hamura sticking their noses in where they don't belong? Erasure asked. Iruka and Sarutobi had to fight to stifle their laughter at Koharu being called an old man. Once the Hokage calmed down, he solemnly nodded. Ah shit, Erasure exclaimed as he folded his arms and kicked the floor. What do those two think they're playing at? They believe that Naruto is not quite ready for a C-rank mission. Since when do they think for anything but themselves? Naruto said, his face foul and his eye twitching. I heard Sasuke team went on his first C-rank mission the other day, and he hasn't trained as much as me. Whilst that may be true, maybe? Are you out of your flipping mind? Kakashi can't wait to spring that kid into all kinds of missions. Next thing you know he'll have a field promotion to Chunin and then Jounin. Don't you think the guy needs to get his priorities straight? And anyway, they have no say what missions an apprentice and Their-sensei take. If I want to put Naruto up for a C-rank, heck even an S-rank, there is no force alive in this village other than the Hokage who could stop me from doing such. It's D-rank missions or I just go over there and introduce Koharu to a spectacular scarring and give Hamura the biggest chill he's ever gotten, Erasure said in a daring and challenging tone. The Sandaime's eyes widened at this. Erasure, don't you dare. Come on, Ji-chan, Erasure whined. A little here and little there. We all say something nice at the funerals. everyone cries, we all go to the wake, bing, bang, boom. No one's the wiser to two old people kicking the bucket at their age. Despite himself, Iruka found himself chuckling darkly. The Sandaime, however, was less than impressed. Sure, those are treasonous words, but what they do is treason, not acts. They bully the Hokage, throw their weight around, expect everyone to fall and kiss the ground they shit on and follow their little cult of Uchiha ass-kissing. Naruto by this time had had enough and had run over to the C-rank mission pile, grabbing the one closest to the top. Yoink, he announced, running back to Erasure. Arashi-sensei, get a load of this. Rank C. Mission, escort person of importance to Hua City, isn't that the capital? Anyway, we'll go do that, Ji-chan. And those Sandaime roared. Absolutely not. Naruto, give that back or I'll. Now! Erasure cried as he and Naruto rapidly formed hand seals. Together they finally cried Oiroke no Jutsu. 2 puffs of smoke later, and the room was shocked to find a beautiful and buxom blonde hugging a redhead with larger breasts tightly. Both were naked and there was nothing covering their private parts other than each other. Pleased, the both whined, rubbing against each other with the redhead licking the face of the blonde. The Sandaime shot backwards with a torrent of blood and Iruka hid his eyes behind his hand. Fine, the old man roared. But you owe me one when I have my advisors coming down on me like a brick wall. Here, a simple C-rank that even you two could accomplish. Travel to the capital city of Hai no Kuni to bring back an important political figure for peace negotiations. Does that satisfy you? Before Naruto could open his mouth to complain at the lack of danger in the mission, Erasure pulled his hand over the blonde's mouth and exclaimed, yes. It's perfect. Thanks, Ji-chan, he said to the old man. Shadows fell across his face as the Dark Lord grinned. The blue and green flamed candles painted his face in an eerie glow. My brother, he said as he stood from his throne of bone. His robe fluttered behind him, wrapping around his thin frame like a blanket over a stick. His feet, small and skeletal, lay bare as he walked down, pressing down hard on the sharp corners of his stairs, the bone melting as he did so, leaving no trace of a wound on his foot. Oni-chan, he said giddily. I'm coming to get you. The Fire Country's capital was known only as Fire Capital. No fancy title. No elaborate kanji. Nothing. Nada. Zilch. Which was strange for such a beautiful city. Every building was larger than the Hokage Tower, even the ones in the slums. They were all painted in vibrant orange, with red-tiled roofs and doors, windowsills and rails. The parks were filled with orange roses, and every other flow that came within the jurisdiction of red and the beloved orange. The people were dressed like nothing Naruto had ever seen before. An amazing invention called jeans was the latest fashion within the Fire Capital. Unlike shinobi pants, they reached to the very bottom of the legs, covering the ankles, without the need for bandages or wrappings. A new style of shoes called sneakers and Converse were all the rage, and Erasure had to hold the blonde off from going after a pair that were well out of their price range. Well, Naruto's price range anyway. Erasure ogled at stores that sold all sorts of inventions like manga and anime, and DVD players. The iPod was the thing that had him drooling. Naruto saw that it was probably the most expensive thing in any of the stores they passed, unless you discounted the stuff like refrigerators and laptops. A trench was dug in the road from where Naruto had to drag Erasure away towards the home of the official they had to grab and bring back to Konoha. What Naruto didn't know was where the official lived. So where do we go? He asked his sensei, who growled at him. The official is supposed to meet us at the palace, he mumbled. Erasure struggled loose from the grip Naruto had on his legs. Damn brat. Alright, we better get to this git before the guy throws a hissy fit. Naruto nodded as a strong wind blew through the street. Hair billowed in the gust as Erasure suddenly turned towards the direction of the palace atop of the large hill in the center of this city. What is it, sensei? Naruto asked, sensing something was wrong. Erasure growled as he suddenly grabbed Naruto by the arm and began to fly with him. What the hell? Since when can you fly? Naruto asked in terrified shock to his sensei. Erasure turned around to his apprentice with an annoyed glare. Didn't I tell you about my advanced AI walking chakra control? Bukujutsu allows me to fly. Now shut up. We've got major problems up at the palace, Erasure snapped as they shot forward, faster than a bullet to the home of the daimyo. Naruto was silenced. Whatever had happened at the palace, it must have been enough for Arashi-sensei to be this worried. People on the ground below looked up to see the two figures shoot across the sky. Some pointed, jaws dropped, and gasps of shock and surprise were released. The palace was coming closer and closer with every second. Within 5 seconds the two landed in amongst the sight of corpses and blood of the samurai that protected the daimyo. Shermata, Erasure cursed. He dropped Naruto and rushed into the palace. Naruto followed, pulling out a kunai as his sensei formed hand seals. Shoten, Suisho Shuriken, Erasure called out. Snowflake-shaped shuriken made purely from crystallized air formed in front of him. Erasure shot them forward, impaling two ninja that had suddenly appeared. Oh motherfu, these are sound ninja. Erasure called, checking the headbands. Naruto, check around here, I'm going to find the royal family, Erasure said. Naruto heard his sensei and nodded as he ran, luckily managing not to bite his tongue. Erasure shot forward down the wooden hallway to where the royal bunker resides. Shunko, he called, disappearing in a blur, appearing at the end of the hallway. He did this several times, each time appearing on the other end of his direction, looking as if he had only taken on step. Naruto turned corners and rushed into rooms. There was blood everywhere. Corpses on the ground, dismembered sound ninja and fire samurai. Vomit threatened to escape Naruto's mouth as he looked on in horror at what had happened. Was this truly the way a ninja was supposed to live and die? Killing a foreign daimyo or trying to anyway and end up against the samurai? Naruto continued on his way, running into dead bodies and bloody limbs, head and other random body parts. There was nothing here but death. Shermata Naruto growled as he rushed down the hallway. Suddenly a whimpering reached his ears. He slammed open a door to find a sight of horror. A girl, a year younger than him at the very most, drenched in blood. In front of her was the body of a finely dressed young man, his face buried into her lap, a gaping hole in his chest. Behind them was the body of a sound ninja, a katana through his face. Back with Erasure, the redhead had finally reached the daimyo's throne room. There he sat, missing an arm that writhed on the floor, grasping a katana of black steel. In front of him stood 5 figures. A white-haired youth in the center, obviously the leader. A sword of bone gripped in his hand. A Kage if Erasure ever knew one. Besides him was a girl, obviously a tomboy, with dark pink hair and a strange hat. She held a flute to her lips, poised to play. Obviously a Sidonitan user. Then a young man with 6 arms and a hair-do like Iruka-sensei. A fat man with a bright orange mohawk, and finally a 2-headed girly boy with cyan hair. If reports from Oto were correct, then these were the Sound 5. 3 held Kekkei Genkai and were not to be thought of likely, being the leader of Sound's personal bodyguards. You just hand it over, old man, the cyan-haired youth with 2 heads said. Your family are dead and you have nothing left. Give us Konoha and give the title of Hokage to the Sound village. You bastards, the daimyo growled. You won't kill me. You need me to do that, and I will never do something so foul to people who have always stood by my side. Sarutobi-sama was there at my coronation and he has always served my family. I owe him and the Leaf Village too much already. I will never allow you to do such a thing. Don't be such a bleeping idiot, the pink-haired girl said as the flute stood close to her lips. Erasure grinned as he formed hand seals. Shoten, Sway Sho Shuriken, he called out, launching crystal shuriken towards his enemies. The 5 turned around in shock. Gurin? The 6-armed one cried as one of his hands was impaled. They each saw Erasure, grinning like a made man, as suddenly a katana made of crystal formed in his hands. Now who do you guys think you are? He asked. Barging into the fire daimyo's home, killing off most of his guard and his family, bringing a lot of trouble on me and my village. You demand the right for the Hokage title off a man who is more loyal to Konoha than most of its own ninja. The daimyo of fire is not someone you can easily threaten, especially when there is nothing of his family left. Now if you had a hostage, then I'm pretty sure he would consider it. Don't get me wrong, to do something for someone you love is one of the most noble things a person can ever do. But as it is the only thing he has now is his life and he'll go down fighting, it's not worth much. A daimyo is mastered by honor, and let me tell you, to die fighting in this way has a lot of that. Konoha, the mohawk guy, growled. He's a jounin by the amount of chakra he's radiating. But why the red vest? Are you serious? Erasure asked. You're facing down one of the strongest ninjas in Konoha, a Shoten user who could crystallize your insides and crush them to dust, and you ask me why my vest is red? What the hell is wrong with you, Sound Ninja? Why are you here? Demanded the pinkette. I don't remember seeing a mission sent out to Konoha. You wouldn't, Sailor Erasure jibed. It was a simple C-rank escort. Anything from C-rank and below aren't registered in daimyo records. Didn't you wonder why there were none of those? But I digress. Tell me what you're doing here now, and maybe I'll kill you and spare you the shame of returning with missing limbs and a failed mission. I hear your boss is a real hard ass, and maybe if I kill you it'll spare you from your punishment. Orochimaru-sama would never. Orochimaru? Taiyuya. So Orochimaru is the boss of Sound, eh? Well then that means that there are less problems for us then, doesn't it? Now all we have to do is get rid of some unwanted gnats, Erasure said, flinging a kunai into the eye of a silver-haired youth behind him. Isn't that right, traitor? Argh, the bespectacled young man cried out in pain as the kunai dripped with what remained of his eye. Ah! Erasure smirked and stepped forward, disappearing in a blur and appearing behind the daimyo. He grabbed the man in his writhing arm with one swift movement, katana and all, and disappeared once again away from the Sound 5 and the screaming traitor. Iruka groaned as Team 8, Inuzuka Hana, Mitarashi Anko, Hatake Kakashi and Uchiha Sasuke stood before him. What none of them realized was that the man before them was Iruka, under the henge of the Hokage, who had rushed out of the office for some old people time. Kurenai, Kakashi and Hinata probably knew it. Well, maybe all of Team 8, as they were experts at either identifying genjutsu or were proficient in knowing Iruka-sensei's scent. The only 2 in the room who didn't notice were probably Anko and Sasuke, who had yet to awaken his Sharingan. What can I do you for then? He asked them in the voice of the old man. Well, Hana spoke first. I request to accompany Team 8 on their mission, and Cyclops here asked me to help train this little shit-stain, Anko quipped. Iruka sighed through his henge. What's the matter, Kakashi-san? Not up to the task of training young Sasuke here? He asked. I think that it might have been a mistake to apprentice Sasuke to you. If you'd like, I could hand his training over to another jounin? Kakashi looked up from his book in surprise. Hee, Hokage-sama. It's not like that. I was just wondering if Anko-san wouldn't mind helping me out. You see, Sasuke has already learned so many jutsus from me that I feel like he should be gaining some extra training from another jounin to fill up his time and use it productively. Has he been mastering these jutsus? Iruka asked. Sure has, Kakashi admitted. Just last week he mastered the Chidori and is quite proficient with it. I never would have gotten so far so fast with a squad of genin, so about assigning Anko to help out of the question. Net any Hokage-sama, Kakashi argued. Don't be like that, please. Sasuke needs to learn and I don't think I can do it alone. Usually genin learn from each other. Maybe I should pull the apprenticeships and put Sasuke, Hyuga Niji and Uzumaki Naruto under Naruto's sensei. Perhaps that will help matters. Iruka was not serious about it, but he was a master actor, especially whilst under a henge, so it was easy to see the fruits of his labor come to fruition. Kakashi dropped his book in surprise and several eyebrows were raised. Uzumaki Naruto? Kakashi asked. No way, Kiba roared. That loser really did get an apprenticeship. That is so unfair. Here we are slaving away on D-rank missions, having to spend equal time with our sensei and learning nearly the bare minimum, and that dobe is off learning countless jutsus like Sasuke and having a personal trainer. That is so unfair. I agree, Sasuke said stoically. That dobe, Iruka said, saying dobe like it was a swear word equal to the one beginning with C, has a special condition that only the trainer that has been assigned to him can deal with. Naruto was assigned to Yamamiya Erasure until such a time when he can ascend to Chunin level, upon which time he may choose to remain with his sensei or go solo. Kakashi looked at the pseudo-Hokage again. Iruka dared not look into that soul bleak eye. He wanted to get Naruto as his student badly, and it would only be a matter of time before he tried something to get the boy under his teachings. Kakashi was a determined individual and a dangerous person to mess with. He had been hell-bent on gaining the reincarnated Sannin Team Minato squad. He acted like a child who wasn't given the toy he wanted for Christmas. I would remain strong on my word, Kakashi. However, I am old, and my memory frail. Despite your demands, certain issues have come to light that require that Naruto be trained under another person who is well equipped in training him and allowing him to fully master his condition. Kurenai, Kakashi, Hana and Anko narrowed their eyes to the academy teacher masquerading as the Hokage. It was Hana who was able to speak up. When you say condition, you surely don't mean. Iruka shook his head. Of course not. This condition has nothing to do with our furry little problem. He smiled as he noticed the looks of confusion on the faces of the genin, a hard glare on the scarecrows, a snicker on the snake mistresses, and static and passive expressions on the tracker and genjutsu specialist. This is an entirely different situation and requires the assistance of another party. Hokage-sama, that is my word on it, Hataki-san. Naruto is under the guidance of Yamamiya Erasure, and as such. Wait! Anko announced suddenly. You don't mean him? She asked, shock etched on her face. Kakashi and Kurenai looked at each other in confusion before their eyes widened and they looked at the masquerading Chunin in shock. Him? Kurenai asked. Kiba looked between the adults and spoke up against being left out. Oi, who talking about? He asked. The master of chakra control, Kurenai explained. A living legend. He is rumored to have the best chakra control in the whole village, fire country, heck, the whole world. With it he can utilize the strength of Senju Tsunade of the Sannin and increase its magnitude, walk on water for hours, create an impenetrable barrier of chakra, and some stories even tell of his ability to walk on air and fly with chakra control. Sasuke's interest was piqued. Is it some sort of Kekkei Genkai? He asked suddenly. Iruka nodded. Hi. Thought the excellent chakra control is a side effect of the actual Kekkei Genkai Erasure is blessed with. None within this room have the clearance to know anything about it. Only a maximum of 7 people in the village, 7 living people in the village, have any idea what this Kekkei Genkai is, myself included. I do not even have the right clearance to inform you of it. The only ones who have that right and ability are the holders of the Kekkei Genkai themselves. You could call it our ultimate weapon if you'd like. Ultimate weapon? Sasuke inquired. Iruka shook his head. You must forgive me, but I have divulged too much already. You must realize that you must not repeat this. Naruto is in safe hands, Kakashi, and you would do well to not get involved with his training. Arashi-san is a very capable shinobi. I should know. He is my 5th apprentice, the fake Hokage said, feigning pride for a statement that was wrong when it came from his mouth. 5th? Kurenai asked. The Sannin and Yamamiya, but if that is the case, then who is the 4th? Iruka shook his head at the question. Forgive me, Yuhi-san, but I'd rather not divulge that information. It would make life very difficult for my apprentice. Who is he? Sasuke demanded. How strong is he compared to the Dobe-sensei? How strong is he compared to you? I need to know. I need to know who he is. Iruka was rather annoyed. Several years in the academy, and he still had not succeeded in stamping out those ideas for revenge from the last loyal Uchiha's head. It was rather annoying the more and more he went on about it. There were more important things than revenge, like what awaited you after the revenge was complete, or if it was ever appeased at all. It had taken a long time to get Sasuke to answer a single question in class without the boy screaming about how useless it was and how useless it was to his goals. Before Iruka could speak to Shati Sasuke, it was Shino who spoke up. Sasuke-san? It would be best if you did not demand things from the Lord Hokage. He is the leader of our village, and should he wish it he would have you killed on the spot for speaking to him in such a manner. Sasuke turned to Shino, a look of fury on his face. Iruka saw where this was going and decided that it was probably the right time that he stepped in and ended all of this. Shino. Sasuke. Please do not try to fight in my office. Sasuke, Shino is correct. You will show me proper respect, or so help me your Sharingan will never be able to awaken, and I will make sure of that. Shino, I thank you for stopping Sasuke before he went beyond the pale. Anko-san, Kakashi-san, permission to grant Uchiha Sasuke-san into joint teaching custody between yourselves is denied. Inuzuka Hana-san, Yohi Kurinai-san, teammate, permission to grant your request, granted. Please each of you remove yourselves from my office. But Sasuke began. A quick glance from the masquerading Chunin shut him up instantly as he was begrudgingly led out of the office by his sensei. The rest followed briskly afterwards, leaving Iruka all alone in the Hokage's office. A soft chuckle from behind him alerted him to the Sandame's press sense. Hello Hokage-sama, Iruka greeted, dropping the henge and his gaze remaining on the wall ahead. You handled that quite nicely, Iruka-kun. Arigato Hokage-sama, Iruka replied, breathing out a sigh. Sasuke is getting more and more powerful with each day that passes, and I'm afraid that soon he may leave once he feels he cannot gain more power. Restricting him would cause him to leave, and empowering him more will bring him to the limits faster than anticipated. I know it is wrong of me to think this, but we need him to revive the Uchiha clan. I am torn between seeing him as a person, a ninja and a student I care for, and the sole hope this village has for regaining the Sharingan. He is more of a tool for this village than any other ninja except yourself, Naruto and Arashi-kun. You are right to think that, Iruka the Hokage explained. Sasuke is just a provider for a clan of strong Kekkei Genkai users, but he is also a person. I wish more and more each day that we did not have to resort to what we did. Itachi shouldn't have had to stain his soul with so many more murders. He should be here today with Sasuke as his student. Naruto should be happy and still with Erasure, and perhaps I could retire my title to either one of you. I would never make a good Hokage, and Erasure would be too much seen as a monster. The Uchiha and Hyuga would persist in his destruction, and then no one would see me as a leader, at least not a capable one. I still demand you take the Jonin exam, Iruka. I would rest easy knowing that you were eligible for the Hokage position when I am gone, and not leave it solely to Erasure, especially with the feelings towards him. I know you have the potential to surpass the Sannin, yet you have never tried. It would be too much of a change for me, Hokage-sama. Iruka, here we are not Hokage and academy teacher, nor are we sensei and student. We are here as friends and grown men, Iruka. I will not force you, but I still believe that it is either you or Erasure who should succeed me as Hokage. Please wait a few more years, Hiruzen-sensei, Iruka spoke up. I don't think you'll want to miss the initiation of Lord Hokage Naruto-sama. Godame Hokage, he said with a playful smile. He turned to face the Sandame with a grin. He wouldn't forgive you if you missed out on something as important as that, and I doubt you would want Naruto to find out that his favorite teacher is his would-be rival in the race for Hokage? Hiruzen asked, retuning the smile. Iruka shook his head. I wouldn't call myself his favorite sensei. Well then I guess we'll just have to change that to favorite father figure then. He looks up to you, Iruka. You and Erasure. I still say it should be either Erasure or Naruto, Iruka insisted. The fifth student of the Sandame becomes the fifth Hokage. Ironic, don't you think? And the son of our greatest hero becomes a successor for his father's glory. I don't think Naruto would like working in the academy the rest of his life. If you want him to follow in his father's glory, then I suggest you take this hat from me, and you better do it damn well soon. It's getting heavy on these old tiresome bones of mine. Iruka smiled in a melancholy fashion when the Sandame joked about that. His distant look gave the Sandame enough time to reach a mission request from the top of a pile. Ah, hey, race, a mission request. Maybe you should take it. Get some more field practice in you. All you know, you might never get it against once you take up my mantle. Hokage-sama. Oh, look, Iruka. A simple escort mission. 3 Chunin should be enough for this. Anko's anxious to get out. I'll send her as an overseer, from a small bit of the offered fee. It won't be much, but you, Kotetsu and Izumo should go. It'll do you all some good. Kami-sama knows how much those two hate being cooped up all day at the front gate, though I doubt being together. Hokage-sama, please don't make jokes about my friend's sexuality. What they do is up to them, and I respect that. It's all in good fun. Hokage-sama, fine. I'll stop if you agree, the Hokage said, offering the mission report to the Chunin. Iruka looked back and forth between the aged and wizened Hokage and the sheet of paper. The Chunin in rank only sighed and took the paper rather reluctantly. I'll do it. Where's it to anyway? A bridge builder. You just need to get him to the land of waves and stay there until he completes this bridge of his. I'd never given much thought to what I would do when I first encountered death on this level. But to see it is far different to hear about it. Maybe I should have prepared myself to see this sort of thing on every mission. In any case, it's too late now. I've seen the horrors of what the Sound Village has done, and all I can say is, they better run. The Kage continuously slashed his bone sword at Erasure, who dodged with expert flips and acrobatics, responding to the attacks with Shoton Jutsu. The daimyo was hidden safely away inside a seal placed atop of a small crystal that Erasure had hidden somewhere on his person. The daimyo's arm was crystallized and put in the same situation as its master. Hopefully they would be able to get it reattached back at the Leaf Village before it was unrepairable. You are good, the bone user stated. Not only do you dodge my attacks, but you expertly attack with Shoten Jutsu, use acrobatics to escape my attacks, and seal away a living human inside such a small seal. You have injured Kabuto-san, and that in itself is no small feat. I'm not known for small feats, Arisha replied. Suisho katana, he called out. A katana made from crystallized white air formed in his hands. It glimmered in the light of the fire spreading around the palace, engulfing the dead bodies of both samurai and sound ninja. You know, I feel somewhat regretful that I can't get those bodies out for a proper funeral, you know. It feels wrong to just let the samurai burn like this. And what of the sound ninja? The Kagaya responded. They started this mess. They attacked the capital city's palace, and you expect them to be thought of as heroes. There's no glory or honor in attacking this place nor doing what they did. There is no glory or honor in the life of a shinobi, either, the white-haired youth argued. Katana met katana in a fury of slashes and clashes. It was like an amazing dance between two professionals rather than trained killers. Though Arashi's skill wasn't anything compared to the Kagaya's. You are not a katana user, are you? What gave me away? Your fighting style is no way up to par with a specialist. While you may be skilled, you are not a master, the Kagaya reasoned. You utilize another weapon, one that is slightly more heavier than a katana and much longer. Your stance gives it away. You also use one hand, which informs me that you are skilled in fighting with two weapons. A Kusarigama perhaps? Not quite, though you are slightly on the right track, Arisha admitted. And you seem to rely heavily on your Kekkei Genkai and your Kenjutsu style. That's not very smart, the Kagaya scrunched his nose at this remark. And what are you skilled in? My Kekkei Genkai, chakra control, weapons, sealing, and a couple of others. The more you rely on one specific skill, the more of a handicap it becomes rather than an actual asset, Arisha explained. Why tell me this then? It's not like you're going to be going crawling back to the Pale Pedo after I beat you, Arisha explained. Right now you're not my concern. Right now all I have to worry about is finding my student and getting the hell out of here with him and any survivors we've been able to find. You're nothing but a hindrance at the moment, although a powerful one at that. One that shouldn't be here in this situation, but out in the world going on dates and with a family. I've heard about the Kagaya clan, and I must say you have my condolences to the ones you loved within your clan. You are too kind. To an enemy you bet I am, Arisha explained. I don't treat people with open hostility unless they have earned it of their own right. I see it in your eyes. You're a monster. You're a follower. There is someone close to you that you would kill for. A person you love more than any other person in the world. I'm guessing that person is Orochimaru. You love him, to what level I don't know, but right now I'm hoping it's somewhere between a father-son bond or a master-devoted servant one. You're just following orders, and there is a part of you that questions what you're doing. Do not presume to know me. You are nothing but an optimist. Swords clashed and Arisha leaned in, forcing the Kagaya onto his knees. Well, near enough anyway. You're a skilled sword user and you waste your opportunities by staying with someone who uses you. You're taken for granted and suffer a depressing and oppressed life. And Konoha? Are you really any different? Wherever you go there will be people who evaluate your worth by your Kekkei Genkai. Konoha is only slightly better in that regard. There you will find people who genuinely love you for who you are. There is never a place in this world where there is never unequal balance towards good and equality. It is what the world revolves around. You must have the good and the bad. The same and the different. Wherever you go there will always be a person out there somewhere thinking about you. Someone who will never expel you from their heart, even when you die. If you remain in someone's heart you never truly die. That is why I will never die as long as there are people in the world who remember me and hold me in a special place. You sound like a beautiful poem. But your optimism is sickening, is it? Arisha asked, finally pressing the Kagaya to the ground, leaning over him and holding his arms and legs down with his hands and feet. Or is it something you've been told to think is sickening? How much of you is Orochimaru and how much of you is actually you? Why do you care? Arisha was silent for a moment before he was able to speak once again. Because Orochimaru stole from me something more important than you can ever imagine. Because of him and his little club I lost so much. I despise that man. No, I can't even call him a man. He has no category that he would not insult. Not demon, monster, beast, scum or anything else. He's worse than all of those. He is an Orochimaru, and I hate seeing people will have lost something to that man. I want to help you, kid. Tell me your name. Do not dare speak of Orochimaru-sama like that, the Kagaya said as he struggled against Arashi's grip. You have no idea what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about, kid, Arisha said. Do you really think I would be talking to you like this if I didn't? No. Let me warn you about something, kid, that thing you follow so devotedly? He is nothing but something that is beyond evil. Let me ask you this. Does he touch you? Does he touch you down there? Do you feel as if there is nothing in the world but him when you're together? He uses people. You deserve more than what you've got, kid. I see it. You have potential. But you've been desecrated. Desecrated by someone you thought, and still think of, as Kami-sama himself. Your worth has decreased because you willingly let him do this to you. Shut up. No, Arisha whispered before pressing a point on the Kagaya's body, freezing him up and enveloping the white-haired youth's world in complete serene darkness. Naruto struggled to lift up the weeping girl onto his back. She kept on repeating Tamome. Tamome over and over and over again. He was hysterical, and she repeatedly rubbed her stomach, massaging the swollen flesh and wrapping her arms around it protectively. Tamame. Tamame, she cooed. Are you alright? Naruto continuously asked as he escaped the scattered flames and into the courtyard outside. Miss? Miss? Are you alright? Come on, please answer me, Naruto called, shaking her shoulders, trying to bring her out of the hypnotic funk she had been pulled into. Tears streamed down her face as she looked up at Naruto, or more specifically his headband. Kokkei Konoha? He stuttered, tracing the symbol with her finger. They came at us too fast. There wasn't enough time to get out. Tu-sama. Hotohori. Nuriko. Shishiri. Tatsuki. Chiriko. Ka-sama. Mitsuke. Ta-ta-ta-tamahome. She screeched. Naruto almost jumped back in shock. Tamame, she cried over and over again, slamming her hands onto the stone floors, tears streaming from her eyelids. Tamahome, look! Someone called. Naruto turned around to see many people from the city congregating around the area, pointing at the burning palace and the two living figures in the courtyard. Haim-sama, Miyakahima, oh my goodness, a Konoha shinobi? What's he doing here? Look! Dead Sound Ninja, the Sound Village attacks Sasuke-sama? No way, Haim-sama! Someone please help Haim-sama. The crowd rushed to the young quivering girl as she wrapped herself in her arms. Naruto squatted next to her, wrapping his hands over her shoulders. We need medical attention, he called out. Someone help. I think she might be hurt. The crowd flooded in, some helping Naruto lift the princess to her feet. Others guided them outside the palace grounds to where an even bigger crowd had gathered. Naruto! Arashi's voice called out. Naruto turned around to see his sensei swiftly closing the gap between them, a prone and unconscious figure limp on his back. There you are. Did you find someone? He asked. Only the princess, Naruto explained. I found the daimyo. I sealed him into a crystal and then I fought this ninja. We need to get him back to Konoha, Erasure explained. However, as soon as it escaped his mouth, people were in an uproar. What? You let him live? Kill him right, Eren, now. What are shinobi thinking? Enough, Erasure called out. Naruto, we need to get this guy to Marino Ibiki ASAP. Not only that, but the daimyo's arm was severed off. We need to get to a medical specialist before the damage becomes permanent. Nani? What have you done? Silence, a new voice joined in. Erasure and Naruto turned to see the quivering girl on the ground. Tamame. Mina all dead. She looked up into Arashi's eyes, tears forming in her own. Shinobi-san, please take me and my father, help him please, I beg of you, she said, her voice barely more audible than a desperate whisper. She cried, grasping onto Arashi's red vest. Onagai. Erasure suddenly had her in his arms, cooing into her head. Sure, he breathed. It'll be alright. Oh, Haim-sama. We just need to transport the three of you to Konoha. There are people there who'll take care of you and your father. Oh shit, he exclaimed. We can't seal her for transport, and if we fly she'll fall off, Erasure cried out. Naruto was suddenly in his sensei's face. What? Why not? Erasure bent down and began to whisper into Naruto's ear. Don't you dare freak out, but whisper, Nani? Shimada. No wonder she was all quiet, Baka, Erasure ordered. We need to seal this guy up in one of my containment crystals first, then we'll deal with the princess, Erasure said. The crowd backed up from the two shinobi as he lay down. He unconscious Sound Shinobi. Forming hand seals, Erasure materialized a single gem. It had a flat back surface and was cut into 8 facets around a single one. It shimmered in amazing blue as Erasure took out a marker and began to inscribe seal on the top facet. He laid it down next to the Sound Shinobi and took the marker, writing the same kanji 4 seal on the Kagaya's head. Finishing with several hand signs, FUI, and Erasure called out. With a flash of orange and red light, the body of the white-haired Kagaya disappeared. The blue gem glowed and pulsed a beautiful light as the body disappeared. He took the crystal and laid it gently into a pouch on his vest, closing it with a zipper. There we go, Erasure breathed out. I've sealed him into the same sort of crystal I've done with the daimyo and his arms. Now, Naruto, I can't carry both of you, and well, girls in Miyakahime's condition, well, let's just say that it would have rather negative effects on the little problem, he choked out. I need to carry her whilst I fly to Konoha. It's a shorter journey and we're less likely to be caught by bandits, so, you want to seal me into one of those things? Naruto asked slowly. Erasure reluctantly nodded as he began to form the crystal. Naruto sighed loudly before he spoke once again. If it helps the mission. Erasure created the crystal and had already marked the kanji onto it. With a nod from Naruto, Erasure wrote the seal onto Naruto's hand. A couple of hand signs later, a flash of light, a lift up for the princess, and a farewell to the concerned people of the capital with instructions. Erasure was soaring above the clouds to Konoha. Iruka groaned as Anko flung kunai in random directions as they walked. The bridge builder cowered behind the scared Chunin, shooting the other two Chunin dirty looks and scrunching his nose at Anko. Iruka was the only one to notice, yet remained silent. He would speak to the bridge builder later about his attitude towards the team that was escorting him to Wave Country. Yo, are you? Anko called out. When are we getting to this country anyway? I'm bored of this shit already. Iruka ignored her pacing in front of Tazuna, and shooting back glances to see him scowl at the other two chunins holding hands and talking adamantly. Sickos, he muttered under his alcohol-infested breath. Iruka fought not to scowl and snap at the bridge-building client. Who was he to judge Izumo and Kotetsu? They had been on the same genin squad as each other, and had not gotten along quite a few times. Their female teammate was a bitch, and rotated between flirting with the two. She was as devious as a snake, and you couldn't turn your back on her for 1 second. It wasn't surprising when several people banded up against her, and she was found dead the next morning, bitch etched into her forehead. The death hadn't really done anything to hurt Izumo or Kotetsu. In fact, the two had their own problems to deal with at this time. Kotetsu had been beaten up and disowned by his family because he had come out about his sexuality. Izumo's parents had died from a botched mission and was left all alone. The two grew close, and then this happened, and that happened, and bing bang boom, they were together. Iruka had been there for them all the way through. He had seen what prejudice and intolerance could do, especially when it came to matters like this. Naruto's condition and treatment was what had opened Iruka's eyes to what was really going on, and had given him a high tolerance for accepting things and people for who they were. Of course, after that the entire thing became more known, and soon Anko was banging on their apartment door demanding she watch while they did it. And people say Jiraiya's a megaperv. It won't be long, Iruka said with a sigh to the brooding Anko. She walked backwards until she fell over en route and landed on her backside. Itai, she exclaimed, rubbing the soft round bubble that was her gluteus maximus. Her butt. Damn tree root! She exclaimed. The other ninja in the group gave out a laugh, all four of them keeping a close eye on the two foreign chakra signatures following them towards Wave Country. What if Naruto Wind and Lightning Kekkei Genkai? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.